Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. How do we? Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. How do we? Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. How do we? Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are. Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. How do we? Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. How do we? Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. How do we? Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are.
Yo. AB, what's up, bro? First one in the building. Theatricality and deception are powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are the initiated. Like, share, and subscribe. And like Black Mind says, share the content because the message is more important than the messenger. Today, I just got in the mood. I was just watching some of my shorts, and I got into the mood of just going over shorts. I think some of the utility of using clipping some of the brilliant content we get in this space is that, you get to revisit it and come back to it every once in a while. Ballpoint, what up? Big ups to you, bro. Big ups to you. Shout out to the first 6 in the building. It's going to be fun today. It's going to be kind of loose. No real specific topic. We're just going to go over some of the gems that some of the geniuses in this space have given us. And I've clipped over 600. I was looking today, 600 clips, because I really only do shorts. And it's up to 600 and something now. So it's amazing. And they're about a minute long a piece, but they're gems. They're gems, irreplaceable gems. Sometimes you would have to listen to a 4-hour stream to hear some of these gems. So if you aren't subscribed to my channel, which I'm sure you are, because you wouldn't even be here if you weren't, subscribe, because therein lies shit you probably forgot, maybe you didn't even catch. Because again, our space, as small as it is packed, jam-packed with information, priceless information. So again, shout out to the first 7 in the building. Again, what we're gonna be doing today is reviewing some of the space's greatest hits, and from my opinion, this episode is Black Manosphere Classics. Black Manosphere Classics. So for some of you, this might be the first time you ever hear some of these, because again, those who frequent this space know we have long conversations. AL, what's good, big dog? Shout out to the elder. Shout out to the elder. AL, I hope you're doing good, big bro. But again, yeah, some of these, we're going to be jumping around a little bit. And where I can start, where should we start? I'm just kind of picking random concepts out, because again, my channel, or my shorts page on my channel, if you've ever visited it, is jam-packed with just minute-long, typically, snippets of gems, concepts, ideas, proclamations in some cases from this space. And I just want to take some time to review it and give these creators their flowers. I wish I could have tagged them all, but I didn't know who all I was going to use. So shout out to them. Share if you see a short that you liked. I'll try to put them in the description as we do the show. I can't promise that, but just shout out your creator, shout out your favorite creators, and give them their flowers, because we can't. Some of these guys we couldn't replace. We couldn't imagine this space without them. Sick D, what's good, big dog? How you feeling, bro? How you feeling? So, without further ado, we'll just get right into it. Let me see, where do I want to start? And you guys I'll drop the link soon, and you guys can pop in and give me your take on some of these concepts, because some of them are unique to this space. And we can take it from there. Let's do this. Boom. Pookie's Advantage. Shout out to Pimp God. I've said it before. Pimp God's channel was struck, but I talked to him the other day. He's got a new channel. I think it's called, let me look. I think it's actually called, he's collaborating with another female creator, probably to increase the odds that he's not knocked down again, because I think Pimp God, this is like his 13th channel or some crazy shit. India at Pimp God. That's what the name of that channel is. India at Pimp God. Shout out to the first 12 in the building. What's up? Make yourself known. Give me a like too. I'd appreciate it. Please give me a like, because at the end of the day,
this ain't for play. I don't do this for fun. This ain't for play. I don't do this for fun. This ain't for play. I don't do this for fun.
We don't do this for fun. So just share it so your compatriots can know we live, because a lot of guys probably don't even know I'm doing lives. But moving on. Yeah, Pimp God's new channel, I think, is India at Pimp God. So check it out. Subscribe to it. Let's get them back in tune, because they can knock us down, but they can't count us out. But let's check this short out. This is from, again, Pimp Guy before they knocked his channel down. So all that content, I don't know what he's going to do with it, but this is a clip from some of it. Check it out.
The fact that he's somewhat scatterbrained. The juvenile male is usually not a focused male, right? So in that case, there's an advantage there too, because it's harder to pin him down, because the nigga all over the place, and then he forgetting his lies and all that kind of shit. So, but the good dude, the solid dude, the available dude, a lot of times I'm saying, she'll take it, but she don't really respect what comes so easy for her. And that includes dick. It's the fact that he's somewhat scatterbrained.
And I'll play it again just for clarity. Shout out to the 16 in the building. Chaos, what's good, big dog? Is that a link for Pimp God? Is there a link for Pimp God? I don't have his link. I'll find it and post it in a second. But yeah, it's India. I think it says India at Pimp God. So type that in and see if you can find it yourself if I'm not quick enough. But what is he talking about? Pookie's Advantage. He's making analysis of the Pookie and Ray Ray archetype that we fashioned in this space, which is highly debated, contentious topic, pretty much utilized universally across the space, kind of loosely, but I like Roger Report's and Edward Anderson's definition of essentially what a Pookie is a black man that could otherwise but chooses not to be productive. And let's define productive just for productive. What's that mean? Productive. Let's see, defining it. Okay, let's use Oxford. No, let's use Mary. Yeah, Marion. Let's see, share this page. What does it say? Productive, having the quality or power of producing, especially abundance. Effective in bringing about something, yielding results, benefits, or profits. Yielding or devoted to satisfaction of wants or creations of utilities. So a Pookie is a black man, from my understanding, and you guys can let me know in the comments. Gabe, hey, what's up? Archer ain't shit. Archer, what's good, Pimp God? I think it's Pimp God Nation. That old channel was knocked down, if I'm not mistaken. It was struck. So he's been gone for a while. But I talked to him on TikTok earlier yesterday, and I think he told me Pimp God at India or India at Pimp God. We might be able to find him on YouTube until I guess he figures out what he's gonna do. So India at Pimp God. Yes, that was him talking about Pookie's advantage, and I was just defining what a Pookie is for those in the audience who's not clear. I subscribe to the definition that a Pookie is a black man that could otherwise but chooses, for whatever reason, doesn't really matter, chooses not to be productive. And we're defining productive right now is in having the quality or power of producing in abundance, effective in bringing about, or yielding results, benefits, or profits. So you just take the morality out of it, take the, social station out of it. Productive is what we're reading here. And these definitions satisfy me. What do you guys think? Does my definition fit the definition of a Pookie? A Pookie is a black man that chooses a black adult, I'll say, a black adult above 18 that could, but otherwise, for whatever reason, chooses not to be productive, right? Or in other words, refuses to yield results, benefits, or profits. That's what a Pookie is. If you agree with me, put a 1 in the chat. But we'll move on, I'll replay what Pookie says for those who are just rolling in. Or we'll replay what Pimp God rather said about Pookie's advantage. So let's do it.
We come out.
It's the fact that he's somewhat scatterbrained. The juvenile male is usually not a focused male, right? So in that case, there's an advantage there too, because it's harder to pin him down because the nigga all over the place, and then he forgetting his lies and all that kind of shit. So, but the good dude, the solid dude, the available dude, a lot of times I'm saying, she'll take it, but she don't really respect what.
So respect it. What he's getting at, I get. What I found interesting about this clip was his analysis of why it may appear to, as he puts, the good guy. Flacco, what's good? Pookie is the problem. Pookie is the problem. And that could be debated. I won't argue, but you can't see in red. Pookie was the same way since a child. In some cases, I think, again, Pookie, yeah, his analysis is interesting because his perspective on why it may appear from maybe a non-Pookie's, so-called a productive black man's point of view, of why at all the Pookie seemingly has any leverage, considering he's a Pookie or is unproductive by my definition. What is his allure? How does he get any sort of cooperation or seeming cooperation from the outside looking in? And Pimp Guy's analysis, or what his position on it is, because he is unproductive and flighty and kind of all over the place by nature, or by nature of being an unproductive man, It's harder to pin him down, harder to anticipate his next move, harder to predict him, which I think in women, Black women specifically, generates a certain level of fear and unpredictability that in turn make them actually in some way respect the Pookie more than, like he says, the good guy who's rather predictable, rather easy to pin down, rather easy to manipulate, which I think is something to that. What are you saying? 414 Mooney, what up? Requesting a Pookie roadmap to being productive after he's been miseducated, disrespected, and probably put on medication since he was a toddler. That's valid, because Pookies do go through all of those things. And there is a roadmap. I mean, the first thing, if I was talking to a Pookie and I was generally trying to help him and let him know, hey, bro, he was tired of being a Pookie. All Pookie means is you're unproductive. So find a purpose. Yes, you probably were miseducated, disrespected, and probably put on medication. Those things are going to be some fucking hurdles. Sure as hell are going to be some hurdles. Shout out to the 19 viewing. Give me a like, please. I haven't checked my likes. I'm assuming you guys are just generous enough to just come in automatically give me a like. But to your point, 414, yes, a roadmap. The first thing I would tell the Pookie is, aside from if he's not too medicated, if he's not too miseducated, and he's not, too broken from being disrespected, I would tell him, bro, find a mission, purpose, and a passion, bro. Fuck the rest of everything. It may take you to educate yourself to facilitate this mission, purpose, or passion. It may take some hard work. It may take you to be disciplined. So if you don't have any of those things, you may want to start there. And those are going to be hard things to do. And likely most guys won't actually fulfill that. But that would be the roadmap, I would say. Pookies are bred to be that way. Yeah, absolutely. In a gynocracy, they absolutely serve a function. Pookie can never get out of his own way. Ray is like Pookie, but is sometimes able to change. Oh, you got a sophisticated philosophy. I just assumed they was just bullshit names. But yeah. I know a lot of guys. I really don't know a lot of Pookies. I know a lot of so-called street guys. But to the definition I'm using as far as productivity, you guys ain't answering. Is a Pookie merely and simply an unproductive, a Black man that could otherwise be, but refuses to be productive? Do you guys agree? Can we all just agree that that's what a Pookie is? When you say Pookie, that's what you're actually referring to. You're not referring to a nigga that dresses a certain way. You're not referring to a nigga that has a certain type of slang. You're not referring to a nigga where he lives particularly, because then that starts to make the definition, that makes the Pookie mean nothing. It could be fucking anybody. You could be misidentifying Pookies all the time if it's that broad. So to keep it simple and keep it useful as a term, a Pookie is merely a Black man that refuses to be productive. We'll just say that, right? Or am I wrong? Please tell me. As we move on, I'll give you guys time to respond. But moving on to the next clip. In this clip, shout out to Pimp Guy once again. Check his channel out. New channel, India at Pimp Guy. Check it out. For our second clip is going to be Edward Anderson, one of the space's most prolific prognosticators. I've watched him create concepts out of thin air, freestyling. So you guys know this guy. If you don't, you should. And again, this is at Edward Anderson. I believe his page name is, let me see. Yeah, Edward Anderson Speaks. So this is his take on the truth about narcissistic Black men. And let's check it out. All right, hold on, wait. Let's see. Pookie can never get out of his own way. Sure. But you guys are still not answering the question. Is a Pookie merely a unproductive Black man? Because I don't want to continue operating on that premise, and you don't agree. I have a brother who's a Pookie and grew up with a ton of Pookies. So you grew up with a ton of men who refuse to be productive. Because productive we defined as what did the white man say? He said productive is yielding results, benefits, or profits. The guys you were hanging around were not yielding benefits or profits. All the guys or tons of the guys. Just to be clear, yes. Okay, all right, cool. I won't disagree with you. But all right, let's move forward. He an unproductive black man. Yeah. Okay. So let's move forward. Let's see what Edward Anderson, again, this is about the truth about narcissistic black men.
You know, y'all like to call them narcissistic men, which are really men that their value completely eclipses yours on the marketplace. So they ain't really got to deal with your shit either. So you all, this is what, let me tell you what patriarchy is to black women. Patriarchy is to black women is when black women have no leverage. That's what patriarchy is to black women. When black women have no leverage on a man, because at the end of the day, he may like dealing with you, but ultimately he can do better than you, and you know it. That is patriarchy to black women. You know, y'all like to call them narcissists.
That's interesting. Shout out to Edward Anderson. Patriarchy to black women is merely when black men have leverage. Patriarchy to black men and narcissism is merely when black men have some amount of leverage over said woman in relation to what said the said black woman we're speaking about. Talking here is unproductive black men. I don't think y'all are purposely unproductive. I don't think they're all purposely unproductive. I've seen brothers get a job and get antagonized the moment they walk in the door. Yes, they're not purpose. Well, it's by design. Yeah, Pookies aren't an emergent phenomenon out of the slums, you know, just by happenstance. The gynocracy engineers the environment in such a way and engineers family formation in such a way that you will produce a certain amount or a critical mass of unproductive black men to be used for other things, used as, you know, permanent retirement plans or labor within the gynocracy, crash outs, proxy violence, bodyguards. It's several uses for Pookies within the gynocracy, which is why they're maintained and produced. Yes, the guy. Yeah, it's not that the Pookies are choosing necessarily to be unproductive. Yeah, but to the point of narcissism, black narcissism, and to Edward Anderson's point, patriarchy is, or narcissism and patriarchy, or the narcissism that patriarchy would bring to black women is the presence of leverage. And I think a lot of black men are raised with this concept, maybe not consciously, a lot of times unconsciously, that doing right by a black woman or a woman in general is to strip yourself as much leverage as humanly possible so that you do not have the power to do wrong by her. I'll repeat that. You've been socialized, the black boy in the gynocracy is socialized to believe that a black man strips himself of as much leverage as humanly possible to render himself inert in relation to a black woman. So that a good black man not only does not out leverage a black woman or utilize any leverage, he strips himself of any potential leverage so that it can't even be possible that you could use it. That's what a good black man does within the gynocratic social order. That's what I think Ed Anderson is speaking to in this piece, black male narcissism. Because if you're a narcissist, a black narcissist, if you behave with any form of leverage that you've earned or you garner or have in relation to a black woman, you're evil. You're essentially Mr. from The Color Purple. Mr. had a tremendous amount of leverage over Seeley and the women in his proximity. He owned the property. He had power and money and resources in greater quantity relative to Oprah's character and pretty much everybody else. And he wielded it with an iron fist, the way it was written. And that was it by design and utilized to disincentivize black men from ever being labeled a narcissist by a black woman. And all that really means is that you have leverage and you may be willing to use it. So that's an interesting concept. Let me know what you think about it. For the next clip we're doing is from one of the spaces most prized, not even a content creator, but he contributes to a lot of content, so he might as well be, but Black Uru. Black Uru here talks about what racism is really about, which I found very interesting when I first heard it, and it made a lot of sense. So let's check it out. Let me know what you think.
Married to this chick, she want the wedding.
Should have an honest conversation, a fully honest conversation. You don't want to compete with me man to man, so you would rather engage in propaganda against me as a group because you fear being able to effectively win a fair competition against me as a black man. And you're also afraid that I'm going to fuck your women. See, I think you have to be a little more aggressive with non-black men on that argument, because I think we don't tell the whole truth about what's going on there. What's going on there, it ain't about you just being a black man. It's about the perception of what you can do if you and I are in a fair fight. If we're in a fair fight, you should have an honest conversation, a fully honest conversation. You don't want to compete with me man to man, so you would rather engage in propaganda against me as a group because you fear being able to effectively win a fair competition against me as a black man. And you're also afraid that I'm going to fuck your women.
Key. Well, I gotta have some type of GIF or something for that.
God damn it! You can't make this shit up.
You can't make it up. And that's a new take on what motivates some of the racism or prejudice you may experience as a black man growing up, even contemporarily, even in your own life. Overt, subtle, doesn't matter. The motivation behind it, I believe, is fueled tremendously by what Black Uru posits. And Sedanius, I might add, in the author of Social Dominance Theory, posit as a motivating factor in in-group, out-group conflict. You're a threat. Why black men have been perceived, no matter how much you try to posture, no matter how much you try to prove otherwise, that you were a direct threat to white hegemony and white supremacy. And it may sound dramatic. Yeah, you little old you. When you walk in a room, especially if you are of a certain look and maybe just a certain, you fit a certain maybe darker skinned framework or archetype, the contempt you may feel, the energy, that awkwardness you may feel may not be motivated by the fact that they think you're going to steal something from them or that you are inherently a liar or that your character is in question. It merely is a function of the fact that you, as an outgroup male, and a quite dominant outgroup male, I might add, are a threat sexually. You're a threat sexually. It's almost, I won't say as simple as that, but a lot of it is motivated by mate guarding white women from the more dominant man that they perceive you to be. Doesn't matter if you are or aren't. It doesn't matter. But to Uru's point, a lot of it boils down to, you think I want to fuck your women? Or they think you or we want to fuck their women. They've convinced themselves that if we wanted to, we could fuck all their women. And they've convinced themselves that we're attracted to their women. Judging from Birth of the Nation, the first I guess, I think it was the first, I don't know if it might have been the first movie, like big movie in American cinema. One of the first. But yeah, Birth of a Nation put out the stereotype that black men were and it was prior to that, the stereotype already existed that black men were obsessed with raping white women. So obsessed with white women that they would go as far as raping them. And that stereotype still pervades today. And we always ask, where did that come from? It didn't come from evidence. It didn't come from experience. We know damn well that it didn't come from experience or actual occurrences where black men were in some large number taking advantage of white women. They've concocted it because you're a threat, you're an out-group male. That happens to be a threat. If you weren't a threat, I think their imaginations wouldn't run so wild. Asian dudes have the same insecurities about their women. I think most non-black men in this country, along with white men, have a tremendous insecurity about black men taking their women. Interestingly enough, but let it finish.
See, I think you have to be a little more aggressive with non-black men on that argument, because I think we don't tell the whole truth about what's going on there. I think what's going on there, it ain't about you just being a black man. It's about the perception of what you can do if you and I are in a fair fight. If we're in a fair fight, we should have an honest conversation, a fully honest conversation.
If we're in a fair fight, yeah. Ultimately, and that was a gem. I thought that was a gem to help guys, maybe understand what the dynamic is in this topic as far as in-group, out-group conflict, i.e. racism. But I found this clip also funny to this point from Eddie Murphy's Raw. Check it out.
People don't believe. What's funny about it is white people are the ones that made up the rumor. The night they said, black people have tremendous dicks. But I don't believe it. People don't believe. What's funny about it is white people are the ones that made up the rumor. The night they said, black people have tremendous dicks. But I don't believe it. People don't.
And that was hilarious when I first heard it. But I didn't take it very much seriously. But it 100% speaks to, again, what Uru highlighted as a motivating factor. And it is funny that rumor, to Eddie's point, was not concocted. It wasn't conspiracy between us black men as far as I know. And again, he's speaking from this and from the 80s. It wasn't a conspiracy between black men to create a rumor that we had bigger dicks than everybody, from my understanding. Black Uru, some of the elders listening, AL, you could let us know if y'all got together and y'all concocted this shit up back in the 60s or something to spread this rumor around. Now, I work around, like many of you, work around white guys. And I've noticed while I was in the job market, in the workforce, it is a weird, with the jokes, comments, when you get kind of casually comfortable with guys, or you hear them in groups together and you just random comments about dick sizes. You hear that, at least me. You guys can let me know if that's just weird situation where I work, or if that's more common across the board. But yeah, that rumor, that insecurity, which is a tremendous insecurity amongst men, I would imagine. I've never had that insecurity, but I can imagine how that could be a tremendous amount of insecurity around sex in terms of how much you could please, or the perception of the pleasure a man, out-group competitor may be able to have on your women, which makes sense that would be enough to fuel hundreds of years of racism. No matter what we did, it would be enough. And they've convinced themselves that, to Eddie's point,
I don't believe. What's funny about it is white people are the ones that made up the rumor. The night they said, black people have tremendous dicks. But I don't believe it. People don't believe.
They made up a rumor that they don't believe, but they constantly bring up and talk about constantly and always joke about, and kind of weirdly, we know some of the cucking phenomenons going on. It's just a concept. Again, sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. Sometimes we try to figure out a whole bunch of, but if you study social dominance theory, it does highlight how resources and sex are essentially the things fuel, which is obvious when you think about it, fuel the competition between groups. And the level of threat of securing one of those two things in excess of your group is a tremendous threat, and always will be, and won't unless we get to an infinite amount of resources and an infinite amount of sexual partners. Which, on one hand, we could potentially get the infinite amount of resources being interplanetary or some shit, but that ain't coming up no time soon. And maybe we can get an infinite amount of sex partners. I don't know if that even possible, but if we can't secure both of those, social dominance theory posits conflict between groups will be inevitable in the foreseeable future. What's Leon talking about? What's good, bro? Landon, what's good? Shout out to some of the new people popping in. Toot Peace, what's good? Toot, what does it say? Toot Tree? What's good, bro? 414, y'all said what up to you. Leon says, if we are in the workplace, you have to think about it. You're in equal position or higher, and your results are simple. The black man is correct. That's literally assert your dominance, mental and physically. That's literally assert your dominance mentally. I'm kind of confused, but I think I know what you're talking about, Leon. I think if we are in the workplace and you have to think about it, you are equal position or higher, and the results are simple. The black man is correct. The black man is correct. That's literally assert your dominance, mental, physical. Yeah, I agree. Well, my position on it, if that's the case, then let's just get that shit out in the open. Okay, white men or non-black men across the board are reasonably worried that we'll take their bitch. I mean, let's just put it out there. We, for whatever reason, and it's not whatever reason, due to the artificial selection of the plantation, these crackers accidentally bred some of the most elite men on the planet by accident, on purpose. And now since they didn't exterminate us, so they couldn't figure out a way to exterminate us, probably because they accidentally bred the most elite men on the planet, they're in a position where they got to walk amongst universal soldiers, essentially. And it creates a certain amount of insecurity, even if we tell them we don't want their bitch. I'm not sure. I don't know if black men have ever collectively got together and said, hey, bro, we don't want your bitch. What is Mrs. Z pulled up, the data and divide data, which highlighted the attraction levels between races. And I think black men did not find, or white women were not the most sought after women by out-group men on the dating apps, interestingly. Contrary to white boys constantly creating an environment where it feels like and it seems like not only white boys, but white women actually too, shout out to Emmett Till, creating environments where it feels, creating the environment that they're constantly under the threat of raped by out-group men because they're so attractive and they're so beautiful, and white women are so bad that why wouldn't other groups of men grape us just to get a taste? They've concocted this shit out of thin air in their own minds and essentially used it to justify dominance, which again, I understand, but we just need to get that shit out in the open. Again, the dating divide highlights how in actuality, white women aren't the most sought after or most selected by out-group men. Sorry. Just because white men are the most sought after by out-group females does not mean out-group males necessarily are seeking your flat booty ass women. Let's just put the shit out there. But I'm not sure if that will actually quell any of their insecurities and worries. But hey, it's better than what we've all been doing so far, which is kind of pretending that that's not actually what motivates some of the hatred, some of the contempt, and some of the outright cheating, so they don't have to actually compete against the universal soldier, which is the black American male, ADOS black American male specifically speaking. But again, I'll move on from that. That was just an interesting concept that I think was, and we'll check out this last one. Let's see if I can get to it. Let's see, boom. And this is a compilation of Ed Anderson and BG, the great BGS. And I think they was cooking, and I haven't heard these in a while. So these, you guys, me and you both, will be hearing for the first time in a while. And this is, I think, over a year old. So these will probably be some older concepts that we probably could use to review. Matter of fact, I already got this window up. What am I doing? Boom. Let's show that. And y'all can see that, correct? Perfect. So most white women weak as hell. I mean, most women are weak as hell generally, but yes, including white women. I mean, it was no, I'm not sure. I mean, I get it. White men think their women are beautiful, and maybe they just, you know, again, they couldn't really say I'm insecure that you're bigger and stronger and faster and more talented than me. So I gotta kind of say, I think you're trying to rape my women, even though you have no real evidence of that. It's really absolutely no evidence of it, but it's better than saying I'm just a hater. So I get it. If I was white, I probably would say the same shit. But let's check out this one.
The nerve to act like y'all should be the main ones hollering about this feminism bullshit. The white woman has been given more than anybody in this country, especially per the work they do. They done straight betrayed y'all. I don't know why y'all should be madder at her than we madder at than our issue with black women. What's the white bitch excuse? They ain't got slavery. They ain't got nothing they done dealt with. You literally got white women trying to turn white boys into girls as children. You literally got white women in the UK literally talking about we need to re-educate. I saw the thing in the House of Commons. We need to re-educate these boys from the misogynistic Andrew Tate. They are mentally castrating white boys and then wondering why Europe's population is free falling.
Reeves and Chetty, all these.
That was interesting because I think that was directed. I think for context, he was speaking to the white manosphere or white men at large. That in their case, when you really look at it, white women are spanking the shit out of white men in public, similar to how black women have treated black men historically. And that should be said a lot louder amongst them, but you don't really see that, which is interesting. But let's move on.
People are not here for no reason. Not here for no reason.
You know, I've heard you say those names a couple times. What are the first names so I can look them up?
Richard Reeves of the Brookings Institute and Roz Chetty of Brookings Institute.
For context, this is hilarious. This is a time when the guy FD Signifier actually, if you don't know, FD Signifier is a bread tube content maker, a lefty Marxist type grad student. He's against the black manosphere. It's a long story with FD Signifier. You guys probably do know who he is. But he's a opponent of the black manosphere that stays out of these spaces because he knows we with the shits over here. But he one day came to BGS's panel and asked some questions, which turned out to be actually fairly entertaining. So I'll rewind it. Now you have the context.
For no reason.
You know, I've heard you say those names a couple times. What are the first names so I can look them up?
Richard Reeves of the Brookings Institute and Roz Chetty of Brookings Institute.
Why that's hilarious is because this guy believed that essentially we're not sophisticated enough to really even table these debates about what we talk about in this space, how our assessment of black politics, black social dynamics, and so on. He believes that we are a bunch of incels in basements that are just bashing women. But this snippet was him coming to BGS's page panel, where we congregate all the time. And he asked about who Richard Reeves and Scott Galloway, I believe, were. And those in this space that are initiated, which is the show, that's the title of this episode, this actually program, the initiated, know who we talk about those guys. We've been talking about those guys for the last 2-3 years. BGS has brought those names up in the space countless times. Other creators have cited sources and read literature countless of times. These very, very well-known analysts that work for a very a critically acclaimed think tank, the Brookings Institute. What does the initiated mean? Leon, you were there, because I think your bubbles, your avatar is on the screen, I think, low key. And Gabe A says, what does the initiated mean? The initiated means you've accumulated enough of the information that we share in this space to actually have an opinion worth listening to, or have a commentary worth tabling. It takes a lot of work to become the initiated. Initiated the initiated it surpasses more than the red pill, I'd say, but it's a state of awareness that the average goer in this space doesn't have. There's a select few that I could say are initiated. These Black Uru Strikes is in the building. What's good, big dog? He says, I was dumb. It was dumb of FD to openly reveal his ignorance. And Reeves and Chetty during this debate with BGS. That was an intellectual lapse. She doesn't not have to so openly reveal. Yeah, but I think because that was a function of him underestimating this space. I don't even think he expected. I'm not sure how much he knows. How he's not aware that we study literature. I think he's caught a couple panels of a couple people. He's one type of the motherfuckers that think Fresh and Fit is part of the Black manosphere. So there's no telling who he didn't know that we're actually studying, that level of we're at that level of analysis, which he proved in this exchange.
Mm-hmm. When Boys and Men, one of the best sellers this year, last year. You aware of them?
Also, Professor Scott Galloway also.
Galloway is third behind them. Okay. Which is why they had to put people like Andrew Tate in jail.
I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
Black.
And that was facts. Because what that revealed was he was not even aware of those people. And again, that's old news in this space. So again, I don't think people really, and this is not some random nigga. FD Signifier got like 600,000 subs. He's actually a very acclaimed creator on the leftist side of YouTube. And he's a thought leader in a certain way, a Black male thought leader. He's supposed to be the white bread version of us. But that's why I say guys don't recognize that in this space, and it's hard to because you're in the ocean and can't really perceive yourself out of it. This space is on the tip of the social, political, and intellectual spear of Black men and the Black community's dynamics. Some of the shit that is just passing remarks or just common knowledge in this space is cutting edge information outside of this space. That exchange proved it. And he never returned after that, because at that point, I'm sure he probably realized, okay, well, these guys are probably not pulling this out their ass. And I don't want to have to confront this. He's been quoted as saying he circumnavigated this space. And then his excuse was that it wasn't something to take serious, but he was in this bitch asking for a book list, as you guys can hear. So that was interesting to me on that part. Shout out to BGS, because that was extremely unexpected and a level of vindication that I think he deserved in terms of how much he contributed to this space. Jess Bay, what's good? Saint Seer, what's good? I saw you in here somewhere, bro. So we'll continue.
Women do not hate Black men. Black women hate that they're Black. And what they do is they project that energy towards Black men.
That's important. And shout out to Ed Anderson. He's definitely said that. A couple other people in this space have come to that same conclusion. Nate, what's up, big dog? That essentially the contempt, the high level contempt, low level contempt that you experience, that we experience from the gynocracy, i.e. black women, is a function of self-hatred, a deep self-hatred of their own blackness, which is hard to reconcile. When I tell people that, when I have that conversation with other people outside of the space, it's hard for them to kind of wrap their brain around it. You mean to tell me black women don't want to be black? How's that? Well, I think a lot of guys in the space have kind of made analysis of this, that the out-group status black women occupy in relation to white women and white men, basically, if untreated or unaddressed, metastasizes into a resentment of themselves and their blackness that keeps them in that position of out-group. So it's rather simple. They can't join them, so they turn inward and essentially start to hate the reason they can't join them, which is, for all intents and purposes, their blackness itself. And they ascribe that blackness, or the station that comes with that blackness, to black men. They blame you at black man, random black man, or the giant Negro that is the black man, as the reason why their blackness locks them out of that out-group status. As Mr. Z says, because we haven't built Wakanda and essentially made being black equivalent to being white, we're contempt is hell for us. We should be ashamed of ourselves, and black women are ashamed of themselves in reference to it. But let him continue because he's cooking. Hold on, having technical difficulties, of course.
So yeah, in like the sense of receiving, yeah, you can say they hate black men, but they really hate themselves. That's really what it is. Black women attach status to the person that they're with. Now, Jason Black has talked about status a lot, how women get status from the man that they're with. And women will forever get on his shit and try to deny that that's true. But it is true. Because at the end of the day, for them to say a man gives them status is them basically accepting being submissive, and that just goes against their feminist programming, which their feminist programming goes against their biology, which is why and black women take to feminism because they hate their blackness, which is why black women are so fucked up.
Let me rewind that because you know how Ed to get, but that was a bar. Let's rewind it.
And that just goes against their feminist programming. For them to say,
he says black women can't admit that they get status from the men they date, because then that would admit that women get status from the men that they date, and that can't go for the gynocratic order. Black Uru says if they hate themselves, how can they not also hate black men? We, the men who made them, and they feel compelled to mate with. For them to hate themselves, they must, by their existence, hate us too. Yes, and that's exactly what I think the logical conclusion to that pathology would be. They hate themselves to the point where they hate their maker. And they recognize at a deep level, or they ascribe to a deep level, that black men are the reason for them being black. It's a hell of a tangle of pathology. It's a hell of a tangle of pathology. But let him say it again.
Say a man gives them status is them basically accepting being submissive, and that just goes against their feminist programming, which their feminist programming goes against their biology, which is why and black women take to feminism because they hate their blackness, which is why black women are so fucked up in the head. This is why I literally say that this is why I call these things mentally transmitted diseases. Because it's literally mental illness in virus form.
A mental illness A mentally transmitted disease. Somebody write that in the chat. A mentally transmitted disease. Self-hate is a mentally transmitted disease. It really is. And I think that's a good way to put it in terms of how it's spread within the Black community or the gynocracy. It has functioned as a virus, a transmutable virus that essentially is Black men and women and children are infected with every day in the gynocracy. And this is some of the ramifications of that type of that specific mentally transmitted disease. It starts to eat on itself and its host to the point your skin bleaching, you hate your hair, you're wearing wigs, you have a light skin complex. You have, Black Root, that was great. That's why I say a mentally transmitted disease. Shout out to Edward Anderson. I've got a better term, compassionate. Intellectual contagion. Yeah, that could work. Intellectual contagion. It has function as a virus that is spread. You see little girls taught self-hate. You see little boys taught self-hate. And a lot of times it takes the form of Black misandry. And a lot of times it's not exactly clear what function it serves, but it serves the function of infecting the listener with a mentally transmitted disease, as Ed put it.
It literally is, because women tend to sync up. Keisha's list. Come pick them up. The answer is yes. Yes, Black men are average at best. Now what the fuck y'all gonna do? Every time a Black female says anything negative about a Black man, the answer needs to be, bitch, date out. Go get Mr. Cartwright. Go get you a white man. Go get you a non-Black man. Well, we just want y'all to be the men we want you to be. We can't. So it's time to dead that fucking conversation. Mario, Jorge, Cartwright, Shang Tsung, we got a thrift store of leftover bitches. They're leftover because apparently it ain't enough niggas is worth a damn. Whatever. Point is they left over. We need you to come pick them up. No instruction manual. Figure it out. Sprinkle some white ice on it. Maybe I've heard the white ice is colder. Sprinkle some.
What's good, Black Guru? What's good?
Hey, how you do, compassionate? Ed got some zingers, don't he?
Hey man. Hey man.
He got some classics.
Say my little twin is what I'm affectionately like to call him. He's the bad twin, and I try to be the good twin. Oh, he stays on. He stays on one. God bless him. That's why I call him category 5 tsunami.
I think he's the evil son you never had. That evil super smart son you never had.
No, he's closer to my. I think I'm just about 5-6 years older than him.
No, it's only about what?
He just hit 40 something. No, he's 40 something now.
He's 38. 38.
He's my age. He's closer to me age. He's my generation.
Oh shit, because I guess I'll be his older big brother. I can't be his daddy because I'm just gonna be 52.
No. What you are basically is you like that. You're a big brother. You're that little uncle who's a designated big brother. Yeah. I got somebody like that in my own family, so I know.
The difference between me and him is he's gonna use all them words to tell you how he feel. Me, I'm just gonna use a few words to tell you how I feel, but they both go end up the same.
And that's why I gotta clip him, because he gives it, and it's just off the dome that he just gives. So that the mentally transmitted disease is a classic.
Yes, sir.
Explain the self-hate that we see reproduced and maintained by the gynocracy, men and women. You can see it, and a lot of times it's the root of it is mama. You know what I'm saying? Or Black females generally, but
it's mostly always mamas that start off this problem with us, and that's something that I guess we'll talk about it. We'll step on it, but we don't want to never step on it like we need to, because guess what? Within all of us, we somehow are feeling some type of way. Yeah, we man enough to talk about the issue about our mamas, but in some kind of way, it starts to self-reflect in us, and then I'm gonna shy away. Something in us to make us shy away. No, I'm at this point in time, I'm not shying away from none of it. My egg don't include it. Ex-wife, daughter, aunts, sisters, cousins, whatever. I'm not. Man, I'm so black pill when it comes to this stuff right now. If they live, they live. If they die, they die. And whatever happened, like the incident last week that we touched on the Roger Report, I believe you were there, Compassionate, and I know you were there, Black Uber. We were talking about the black woman and her mom in Detroit in that situation. Everybody was trying to find every reason and rhyme to obfuscate some kind of way, if not in a heavy version, a light version on that man. I mean, not us particularly per se, but others from the outside looking in. And I was respectful enough because I know me. I'm in this mode now. Everybody don't want me to cuss. I'm waiting till the end of the show to come on because after the show, because I know my mouth, and then I'm on the thing in my head. Won't no man ever quell my First Amendment right of freedom of speech. I don't care if it hurts your feelings or hurt anybody else's feelings. It's called the raw naked truth. But I can respect another man's platform, so that way I stayed away. But I came on after the fact, and we had in-depth conversation about this, and I literally had to tell some of these guys, look, quit obfuscating this whole damn situation. This situation is a fucking her problem and her problem alone. And at that point, when I heard the whole landscape of the situation that took place, I was like, I feel nothing. I can't feel nothing. Yeah, 2 kids perished. Yeah, that is a sad and tragic thing that happened. But guess what? That mama let those 2 kids of a total of 5 perish. That's what needed to be reiterated and hammered over and over. It wasn't no man's fault, wasn't the daddy's fault, wasn't none of them other fathers' fault. She put herself in that position. We all know on this chat and in this panel, women have every ability to go get some help, and the world will help them. They're not helping me. They're not helping other men when men fall off on hard times. They don't care. So guess what? Oh, was I supposed to feel some type of way because she let her kids perish because she was full of vanity, ego, and her idiosyncrasies and insecurities? Wouldn't she didn't want to display them for the world to see? Because if that happened, she would literally have to revoke, go back into her 5-year-old childlike mindset situation to deal with stuff, because that's how she probably deals with everything anyway. So no, I feel nothing. But I digress.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was there too. Yeah, and I think that, and the facts of that case, we went over at length, and again, that's what obviously we understood the response at the public level was to blame the father, but the facts of that case gonna come out because now it's a national story. But to the point of the clips we just played from Ed Anderson and BGS, and this is a compilation of both of them. Y'all can find this whole thing on my channel. I'll put the link in the chat so y'all can check it out on your own. But yeah, Ed drops a lot of gems, and BGS and him are 2 of my favorite prognosticators. But let's keep going, see what he got to say.
Some white ice on it. It goes with everything. If you come within the next 24 hours, we'll give you a complimentary book on how to date black women for white men. That's a $4 value.
What's happening right now subconsciously in men across the globe, this is what me and my girl talk about because she get mad sometimes. I says men's hindbrains are waking up when the next social contract is going to be. I said, let me ask you a question. She goes, what? I says, in the holiest of holies, why there ain't no females in there?
Ooh,
she said, what? I said, the only female that's referenced is wisdom.
Yeah, that's true.
There is no female or in there at all. The contract that God, the Father, God, the Son, and God, the Holy Spirit made is amongst them. The next social contract will be men and men only. Y'all will never have a say so after this. Well, we'll revert back and it ain't gonna matter no more. We got the internet. We have a piece of technology that will remind us how you were always going to be. And
what Mr. Z say, the internet will expose us all.
Yes, it will.
The internet will preserve a lot of this shit for the first time in history, which, to his point, is going to make it hard for the women of the future to make a case for whatever comes next.
We're going to remind us how you are going to respond and act if we give you certain things, because y'all don't want to do right in this moment right now. So we were talking about giving up power in the home, right? I says black women talk about loving God the most, but God say let the men run the society and run the home, and y'all ain't giving up the home. I don't blame you for not giving up the power, but know that your destruction and downfall of your community is because you motherfuckers won't give up the home. And I says, and that same matriarchal mindset is also in the Hispanic community. I don't want brothers to walk over into the Hispanic community thinking just because y'all see that man running it in public that he ain't really getting bitched out at home. He's getting bitched out at home. Because you can look at the success rate of the community if it's led by the men. Period. You follow me? And that's the issue. That's the same way I told her. We had this discussion. I says, do you know how many American black families are in America? She said, no. I said, there's about 460-something thousand. I says, do you know how many Mexican or Hispanic Hispanic families that are millionaires in the United States of America? It's like 260,000. You motherfuckers should be dwarfing everybody. You actually should be the second group of millionaires. You should be if you are a patriarchal society, if you have a patriarchal mindset. But you don't.
That's why Latinos love brothers so much.
Yeah. Because they can run y'all and they can run us. And you don't, and you have to understand that what the price tag that comes with being treated like a king is secretly she's running you at the house.
Yeah. But at least you get something out of it.
But I agree with that. You do get something out of it. But what the point I'm trying to tell brothers is run your outside life like you run your home. And take no, like I told BGS this, I said, look, if I'm really being, like, I don't like to be black pill on it, but I said, if I'm really being black pill on it, I tell a lot of brothers this, if I wanted to have children, right, I would go marry me a Hispanic woman. I would go marry me an Asian woman who has a college degree or is educated, minded, focused, or I go marry a Jewish woman. That's the two I would go marry. Yeah, I see. The two right there. That if I really wanted to push hardcore legacy, hardcore making a fundamental push, and I probably might even add in an Indian woman because their culture is heavily education promotion, right? Yeah. Them three right there. Now, if I just wanted to have a normal ass family and all that kind of stuff, then I go get me a Hispanic woman. I just go be a normal dude. I just go get treated nice and happy the rest of my life. And then there's some, I ain't saying Hispanic women ain't educated minded, but I'm just saying overall, if you look at the whole group.
A lot of people get offended when I say that you're.
That was a lot said in that one. That was a very much lot said.
He didn't tell not one lie though. Did he tell a lie? Compassion? Don't worry. I'm looking for a lie that he told. And I know I don't see one.
I didn't detect any. I did not detect any. And
all I heard was facts and logic.
I would say this. Like we said, like we say, there are no solutions. To quote a certain individual that Mr. Z has quoted a few times. There are no solutions, there are trade-offs. So if you're gonna cross over to that other side, understand what the trade-offs are.
Yeah.
And I have to be the devil's advocate here for a minute. You might as well call me a motherfucking Satanist for it, but when you cross over to that other side, understand the level of anti-black racism they harbor. Some of these groups have terms that you guys have never heard of for your black asses. They've been practicing on Africans like myself for decades, going back to colonial times and whatnot. So trust me when I believe that the anti-black racism that occurs if you cross over that side can be quite vicious. Y'all familiar with the Latinos, but y'all don't understand about how it is with South Asians and Jewish and everybody, And
I'm glad you said that, because that's 100% true. I would like to think in terms of how, how we approach the admixing phenomenon that black men are probably going to increasingly partake on is if hopefully my idea of it, hopefully we can form a semblance of a black male in group where the posture that black men are taking in terms of dating out and getting inevitably, taking women from other cultures is not so much a posture that we expect to be absorbed and treated like now absorbed into this white family. It's more of a, for lack of a better term, it's more of a resource acquisition posture that we're acquiring your women, like to they lives point, because of the prowess in terms of maybe how they educate children, in terms of how they serve, how you train them to serve men. We're not taking your women to join your families, bro. If anything, we're taking your women to take them back to the black male in group and multiply, use them as portals, as Nameless would say, to facilitate the next generation of black male.
Trust and believe, and here's the thing you have to consider, my dear friends. As somebody who has been involving with women of other races, trust and believe you will get some pushback from the in-group men. They don't have understand. They think they're entitled, especially in y'all's case, and you see this also in Europe, also in the Middle East as well. They think they're entitled to have interactions, have relationships with quote unquote your women. But it's a problem when you try to get involved with their women.
Oh, I get that. Okay, that's cool. I can accept that. I've been dealing with that insecurity from white men. My ancestors have been dealing with that insecurity from white men for generations. I'm cool. You can feel away, but your bitch still want to marry me, and I'm gonna take her.
Yeah, so and be prepared for the ostracization and the violence that will come with it in certain cases.
I think the question is the degree to which you will be able to control and manage the environment in which you have your family, where you have your wife, where you have your children, what schools they'll attend, who they will interact with. See, the problem is just not, because I think Namer is right. I think what Namer is saying is that it's how you're going to be able to manage the community, the neighborhood, the community, all the influences that are going to attempt to oppose whatever sort of environment you attempt to create for yourself and your family. And especially if you're outside of the United States, where you don't have the rights or whatever that you presumably would or should have in the United States. I think it is a question and a concern that should be much more thought about and talked about and even planned for, because it's a complex issue. And there is no existing plan that I know of where you can, because very often, if you look historically, very often, men would go and conquer a land and then would still adapt the culture and the religion even of the lands that they went to. The Norwegians, they adopted, French and Gaelic and whatever cultures that were in that were in Britain or the island or whatever, Britain and France and whatever. So it is a complex issue. History says that there's no that the possibility of losing yourself to that new place, to that new culture or whatever you enter is quite imminent.
I can give you an example of that, Black Guru, since you brought up, where I'm at, which I'm a citizen of. The Norse, for example, or the Nordic folk, the Vikings. If you understand the history of Iceland, or Greenland for that, but primarily Iceland, they would raid the the Isle of Ireland, and they would take a lot of women with them from there. And you see, like, if you look at the DNA of most Icelanders, it's 50% Celtic and 50% Nordic. And seeing redheads is not uncommon in certain parts, but most of the folks there, because of the climate up there, have lighter complexion, lighter color hair.
Yeah, it's essentially admixture, which 100% I agree with you. I'm not. Yeah, I definitely think it's something, and I think because if like Nameless and I have spoken about this, because I think the cart sometimes goes before the horse. I understand that it is not going to be as simple as black men hop on airplanes, go around the world, and marry the women of other cultures, and then you're gonna be able to maintain, like you spoke to, Uru, your level of control and influence is gonna be compromised in that case. But like to Nameless's point, that's why Nameless harps on in-group dynamics. He believes that before that can before that type of conquest can be seriously looked at as viable in terms of return on investment for black men, an in-group must be established of black men. In-group dynamic, which that doesn't even involve black women. That's just a matter of black men need to form an in-group dynamic that is solid enough. Infrastructure is built within it. Rules and norms and culture is housed within this in-group, where black men, SYSBM passport bros, obviously abroad or even domestic, have some locus of culture, black male culture, that is the thing we try to preserve as we tango with these other cultures. Because absent of that, yes, you will be absorbed. Your children would be absorbed. You yourself, by yourself, with no, to your point, Uru, no neighborhoods, no communities, no calcified infrastructure that maintains and perpetuates your culture. As a black father, you will likely be absorbed by that Arab woman's culture, that Latin woman's culture, that African woman's culture. So
if they haven't ostracized you, that is.
If they even accept you, to your point, assuming they accept you at all, like they don't ostracize you or whatever. If they ostracize, again, I don't mind. Again, the women are terms in the way I'm looking at this is terms of they're mere portals for the next generation of offspring. A woman's wife ostracizing her because she married a Negro, if we have a robust enough in-group of our own, will be trivial. We have a community to take her into. She'll be sad, but who gives a fuck? Just make sure my kids are educated, essentially.
Well, you know, that establishing, maintaining in-group, you know, you have to look at history. I mean, usually history, you know, says that in-groups come from a shared religion, a shared geography, so that even if people, you know, travel to other parts of the world, they still have a base of geographical base from which their society is built and maintained, and then you perpetuate outwardly. Certainly conquest is usually the way in which you build and maintain or perpetuate, you know, sort of your Alexander the Great, plan, where you just go and you kill up enough brave people from other communities in which, and then the other people surrender and the women spread their legs, so to speak. You got that way of doing things. So, I mean, you know, building and maintaining that in-growth, you know, maybe the ultimate example of that being Genghis Khan. You know, that there are ways of doing and maintaining that in-group. How you create that and maintain that in the modern world, and have a critical mass of men hold fast to it. I think it's a challenge, you know, absent the availability of those traditional tools for building and maintaining that in-group.
Well, I would only argue to that, Uru, is that essentially we already have black men, in terms of black men in America are a forced classification, essentially. We have a shared, to your point, usually in groups have a shared history, lineage, environment, or religion, so on, something to tie them, a shared ideology, essentially. And we have that as men. The problem is we don't function as an in-group. We function as a forced classification. We function like a prison. Like the prison inmates are an in-group, but they're a forced classification in group, and they function as one. They descend into little tribes and they battle amongst each other. They don't work together or take over the prison typically. So we function more like that because of, by design. It's been designed that we didn't form a functional in group amongst ourselves, because we do have a geographic location. United States of America is inevitably our place of where we essentially were, where we spring forth from in terms of FBA lineage, and we have a shared history. We just have to consciously codify and design an in-group of our own, authored by us, which we've never done. We've never had the luxury of doing. We've never had the means of communication to do. We've never had the space and opportunity, so to speak, to do until, till the internet, which we kind of done here in the Black Manosphere. We formed technically, by Sedanius, the definition, a small in-group. So it's possible to do. It's been done. We see in groups everywhere around us. We see them spring up. So it's not a phenomenon that cannot be done. It just has to be, again, I think this is the cart can't go before the horse. I understand. We can't. I agree that we can't just haphazardly think we're going to marry other groups of women and that'll just be it, and we'll be able to just pretend to maintain a black culture.
And the thing to go with that, you have to understand is, like, when you guys interact with other groups, the fact that somebody once said this, and I remember. Wait, is anybody familiar with the case of Bakari Henderson? First of all,
not exactly. No, not off the top of my head.
A young African American who was murdered when he was with his high school buddies after graduation on a Greek island when they were there on vacation. And I remember a certain YouTuber was talking about that. He was I believe Ados, and his point was basically,
I remember. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, his family's still fighting for justice, despite the fact that but that's beside the point. But in that video, his response to all that, when he talked about that, he said, like, first of all, black men, when you travel all over the world, you can't be as reckless as white men are, first of all. Especially there, and plus, if you don't have any knowledge of if you don't have if you don't have your finger on the pulse, on the ground of how the society is, especially in parts of Europe where they have a certain level of anti-black racism, but it's mostly targeted towards Africans and whatnot. With y'all, they may have some kind of level of tolerance because you got that blue passport. Same thing what they say with if you're a British national, you have that red passport. But overall, they don't. In certain groups, there are certain groups who just don't care. All they see is that your skin color, and that's it. And also, from an anthropological standpoint, some groups really discourage members from marrying out.
Yeah.
And others, they encourage people marrying in. So when you take a woman from that group to take as your bride, trust and believe, they will ostracize her. And that ostracization is too great for that woman to bear, because she's cut off from that support network. And you're forcing her to adapt. And sometimes some women are just not mentally capable or mentally strong enough to adapt to that situation.
Yeah, that's 100% definitely a possibility. And it is what it is. You're gonna have to find the one that is. In the case you get ostracized, some, like you said, some cultures are happy to absorb, especially a blue passported motherfucker from the West. We understand just the balls and the brass tacks to it. But I think black men need to get out the posture of approaching this global citizenry, this universal citizen approach, the passport bros, as individuals.
It doesn't
work.
work.
It's not a game you want to play as an individual. Obviously, you might have to start out as on your own, but the goal cannot be, if we're going to be, moving into this fourth industrial wave and globalization and the world kind of opening up, and things going to be a lot different than it's ever been in terms of opportunity and drawbacks of economies, and certain, economic systems going to change. To adapt to that, we definitely probably should approach that as a group as much as possible.
And keep in mind with that statement, compassionate. To quote Sheikh Jamil Alameen Abdullah Alameen, formerly known as H. Rap Brown, there was another speech I remember he had where he was addressing the crowd. This is from the 60s, where he had to explain, Black people, you have to understand that you're never going to be afforded individuality. People are always going to look at you as part of a group. So when you were out somewhere, and this happens to any minority, when you were out and about, whether you like it or not, you are going to be the representative for your community, for your nationality, and whatnot. I have to deal with that anytime I'm out and about, because I can't just say that I am this, I am of this tribe, I'm from this nationality. People are just gonna look at me, well, you're from this region. And they will, and the in group is just gonna look at me and just say, well, you're an African, you know what I'm talking about. Even though I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah, this group down there. I'm like, no, I'm from this part. And there's this willful ignorance they're gonna use to not want to bother.
And I've, as Black men and as a Black man, I've confronted, as an out group male in the United States of America, I'm confronted with that essentially every day. And I'm come to the conclusion that to just accept the dynamic that you described as inevitable, that you will be judged by you won't be judged as an individual typically.
You are judged by your race, because when they see you, what's the first thing they're gonna see? Your skin color.
Exactly. And just accepting that and not getting into a position or into the infinite loop of trying to convince motherfuckers to see you as an individual. I think that's a post-structural idea that sounds good. Sure. Yes. Judge everybody by the merit of their individual character and don't see race and all that shit. But we can obviously see that that's not really possible. So instead of getting caught up in trying to prove it to white people or try to prove it to out group people relative to you, just accept that they're going to treat you like an out group member. And it is what it is. That's why I want Black men to start having pride in their association to Blackness. I'm out group relative to these people. That's fine. I'm not expecting them to kumbaya and kiss me and bring me into their family and all that shit. They're going to be jealous and suspicious and a bunch of shit. Cool. I'm here for a reason though. I'm here to compete.
Yeah. And when they realize, you know, and just judging by your accent, when they realize, oh wait, where you from? Then they might be willing to welcome you guys, because you have that blue passport or you have that red passport if you're Canadian, or red passport.
And I'm saying that's cool. Y'all can accept me or fucking not. I'm here for a reason. I'm here to meet my girl's family, and y'all don't fuck with me. That's cool. I got some niggas back in the West that fuck with me. I don't need to fuck with y'all. Like, I don't need to be accepted by you.
Well, you do have growing numbers of African countries that are openly offering citizenship opportunities to African Americans. So presumably these are environments that are going to be much more welcoming and appreciative of the presence of African American men, and very likely would be welcoming of, you know, such men establishing the kinds of communities and neighborhoods and businesses and schools or whatever they see fit. You know, of course, you'll have to work through certain social and cultural and legal issues, but I think maybe the optimum approach would be to consider countries like those, because you're going in the door with some expectation of being welcomed specifically because of what you are, rather than having to somehow prove or validate yourself to these people in some way.
Yeah, I agree. Africa, I think, is definitely going to be a place that we can conquest, not in a negative way, but we can start to
build. You can build. Yeah, both in terms of material, but also familial, societal, etc.
And I think it's important that going into that type of situation, I would prefer if Black men went to these countries throughout Africa with a sense of self, a sense of their own culture, that we're not there with our hat in our hand trying to, we don't want to be, we don't need to be blessed into your tribe. Of course, obviously good hospitality and, accepting us as, cousins or whatever is fine. But I would, just in case we confront, because we're still out group. That's essentially what I'm getting at. Be comfortable being out group relative to other groups, because a lot of times you won't be integrated completely. Other times,
I think what would be important to do is to establish some sort of formal diplomatic. I don't know if that's the right word, but some sort of established look. Okay, obviously I am formally different from you, and I hope, or I expect to be able to live and operate in this way in your country. So we establish some agreed, stated, agreed upon way in which you'll be able to operate in that country and be able to marry in that country and buy property in that country and become educated in that country, etc., so that you're not necessarily offending them, but at the same time you're able to do what you need to do.
Exactly. And we've seen other out groups of other races do that in terms of Asian persuasions and Russians and so on. So, and they've been able to navigate that, and there's no reason we couldn't. We just, again, have to approach it with the right mindset. We can't approach it with, again, maybe a traditional Pan-African approach that we used to approach it with, where we're long lost brothers and sisters, and they're going to just start, they give us that little.
And we can be family, but, we're a different wing of the family. Or we're, new wing, and this part of the family operates a certain kind of way,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I can give you an example, like among my community, and this is over on your side of the Atlantic. Like you see like many ADOS men and women marry into Ethiopian or Eritrean families. And you're welcomed in when they give you a name from their particular language, especially when they find your name hard to pronounce, unless it's a biblical name. Then they'd use the Giz version of it. That lets you know you've been welcomed in.
Mm-hmm. But when but let me ask you this: is it? I imagine there's always some out group status for somebody that's not of the Ethiopian, or Eritrean, family tree. Even though you may marry in, is there some, or is it a total integration that it's part of the culture to totally integrate this person as if they're not?
That you're accepted to an extent. I've got a couple of cousins who are married to ADOS men.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a challenge for them because trying to learn the languages, trying to understand they love the culture, the food and everything, but trying to learn the language can sometimes be a bit of a problem, especially when you're talking with the elders.
Yeah.
Especially elders who've been in the US for like 30, 40 years. And sometimes it's just for some, because, they can't, the flexibility to converse with them may be a little bit difficult for you. Because remember, it's hard to learn a language when you're an adult.
Right.
Some people do not have the oral, or their tongues do not have the flexibility to pronounce certain words. And understanding like certain cultural cues, like certain gestures that are what normalized in the ADOS culture is seen negatively,
right,
by theirs, because there's a level of ethnocentricity you got to deal with. Also, in the case of somebody like what's his name, Black Mind.
Yeah,
Black Mind. I mean, he's talked about. Shout out to that brother, because he's mentioned his wife is Somali.
Mm-hmm.
And Somalis are, and Somalis by nature, and this is not a knock on his wife. This is like, you have to understand, it's like in Somali culture, they are very closed off. Somalis, as well as another ethnicity called Afars, just like certain tribes in other parts of Africa, they are not as welcoming to you. In fact, some groups are known to be fiercely hostile towards outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
So when you interact with certain groups, you have to understand what their mentality is before you try to get involved with them. This is why you see less integration with them, and more integration with other groups like Sudanese or Eritreans, Ethiopians, or if you go interact with Kenyans or Tanzanians. But you also have to understand the history of that particular tribe, and you come down there, you got to be well aware of ethnic rivalries and whatnot. Like, say if somebody is getting involved, like say somebody in Nigeria, if you get involved with a Nigerian, you got to know what tribe that your friend, that family member, that person you're involved with comes from, and what is the social dynamics in their particular home state back home in Nigeria with other groups. Like, I mean, say for example, you could be with a Yoruba. You got to understand the animosity they had, the traditional animosities they still have with the Igbo tribe, who are from the other side of the country. Or if you're for someone like in the central and northern parts, depending what religion they have and what kind of inter-ethnic issues, inter-religious issues they have with other tribes. Same thing if you went to Rwanda, Burundi, if you remember those genocides.
Yeah, and it's going to definitely take a level of social dexterity. That, you know, which the type of guys that actually are passport bros, the type of guy that will be those first, that are those first movers on this type of lifestyle and integrating in other like foreign cultures and shit, are special, you know, a special breed of man. But and it definitely will take a level of like social dexterity. Just going into things, understanding that you're tapping into new cultures and something that really human beings haven't had the luxury to do.
Yeah, and keep in mind this, like for example, if you're getting involved with somebody who's South Asian, they have colorism. Their colorism is a lot more intense. And if you're getting involved with that, you got to understand the religion of that person you're involved with, because you have to understand the caste they belong to. Because it's not just a Hindu thing. Caste, you see this in other religions in that part of the world. Their social standing, their community, where they're from, their home state, everything's very complex. That's why a movie like Mississippi Masala with Denzel Washington and Sarita Chowdhury is very important. That, I mean, it's understanding what it meant to be Indian, South Asian, and part of the South Asian diaspora and their interactions with the American society, with African Americans. A movie like since we were talking about earlier about colorism, look at a movie called Imitation of Life in the 1930s and 40s. I'm sure Black Guru or A.L. Evans would know that movie, Imitation of Life. It's about the issues of passing and whatnot. I digress.
But
no, taking too much time.
No, you good. But definitely it's a complex discussion in terms of how we orient. But that's my position, that I think in group dynamics, solidifying that, which we do a lot of that work in this space, is important to do to actually get the most out of tapping the world as far as we go forward in terms of cultivating a black male in group. But let me continue to play this just to finish this up, so we ain't got to stay here all night. This is not Black Guru, sorry. This is BGS, and I don't even remember what this is from. He's reading something, but let's see.
Concubine. And I always say that a lot of black men look at their masculinity through the lens of what? A woman's vagina. Can you lay, bid, and be a stud or concubine to a black woman? Because there's only three places in the gynocracy for a black male, okay? Child is one, okay? But the other two, the ones we focus on, is either concubine or a resource or provider. The protector is a different animal. That's all matriarchies. But in the black community, either concubine, sexual partner, or provider. That's where you get the dual mating strategy. That's the dual mating strategy that we talk about. That's literally the Russell Wilson versus Future argument that we talk about. It's right there. What do they call Russell Wilson? The provider male, right? He is the archetype for the provider male, right? And Future is the archetype for the concubine. Okay, they're describing him right here.
No lies told. No lies told.
Yeah, and that's an interesting concept. That what do you say? The three places for black men and boys in the gynocracies is concubine, serf, and child, which is a very interesting concept that I thought when I heard it was interesting. And you kind of see play out in real life. It's interesting to see if that's the case. What slot do you as a black man feel, if you participate in a gynocracy, feel in that so-called with dual mating strategy? Or I guess you can't be a child, but some men, Pookies in some cases, play the child role. You know, they take care of.
Yeah, Pookies are often both concubine and child.
Yes, and they put them in that category 9 times out of 10, mostly. That's what a lot of people don't want to admit or come to the realization to. This is the game. These women know the game that they're playing, and they know, for the majority of them who are living like this, like what Black Uru just hinted to, and how they move. This is a prerequisite for them, man. If they don't put them in those 2 categories, they don't want them. They don't need them.
See, my point is, and you're right, but my point is, black men need to know the game they playing. Black men need to recognize what slot are you playing in relation to a gynocratic black woman. And if you dating the average black woman, chances are it's some gynocratic culture going on in that shit that you're participating in, that you help and facilitate because you don't necessarily think about it like it's plain as DGS just put it. Are you playing a child role? Are you playing a concubine role? Are you playing a serf? Are you a combination of all 3?
In the animal kingdom. Excuse me.
All of those are, I'm sure you guys have heard me say before, I think one of the biggest problems with black men as a whole is not having this overall life mission or vision.
Yes. Yeah.
And the reason why I repeatedly say that is it makes you vulnerable to being put in these roles. Look, if you have your broader vision of what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, some timelines in which you're trying to do things, can't no bitch slot you as her concubine or her serf, or certainly not her child. You can't slot a leader, a visionary, as some woman's child or concubine. They don't have time for that. That don't even fall within their possible actions, So a lot of it is this whole slotting thing is a result of the brothers being themselves bereft of some broader mission, of some broader what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's going to be on my tombstone. That's how you get slotted in these weird positions.
And you're right, and that's by design, Uru. Like you said, we know at this point that the gynocracy orientates men in terms of their manhood with women, with getting the validation of women, not necessarily accomplishing a mission.
Basically, in the animal kingdom, what kind of a person would that be in those roles? It's basically the male spotted hyena, because in a hyena clan, it is a nature. Black Hoover, you okay, sir? Sorry, I was hearing some commotion on your end. Anyway, hurt my ear.
Go ahead.
But it's basically a hyena clan. So basically, you're either a pup or you're a subordinate. And to use the quote, you better to remix the phrase that Mr. Z said. In a hyena clan, your the only accomplishment you can hope to achieve is that you mate with the matriarch and sire the next matriarch or something like that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you sire a female pup that'll grow up to become the next matriarch, unless something happens. Because oftentimes, matriarchy is a whatchamacallit.
And honestly, for a lot of black men, that is the dynamic they're playing. That's what you see with a lot of guys in terms of the black girl dads in the black community.
Yeah.
No offense, Black Uru. I know you a girl dad, but I don't think you.
I'm a girl dad too.
You are. I forgot you are one too. Yeah, y'all. But y'all initiated. But typically, black men do play the vibe you get, the vibe I've gotten a lot of times from black men of daughters that I've dated was that they were very proud that like you just described, a hyena, the best you could wish for is to be
as a male hyena is the sire,
matriarchs, right? The
the
sire,
female pup of the matriarch.
Yeah, and that's how that's the dynamic you observe of a lot of black girl dads, that they're proud of being the father of the next queen, and the way they communicate their value of their daughter and the value and how they communicate to you their perception of your value tells you a lot about what they, their value system within the black.
And the prime example, compassionate of that, would be the character Mr. McDowell, played by John Amos in Coming to America, when he realized the true identity of Eddie Murphy's character Akeem. Think about that. Because once he found out who Akeem was, and when Akeem's parents came,
right.
Remember, and he found out, he started like looking at him like a potential son-in-law, because like, my daughter's gonna marry Prince.
Name is absolutely right, because if you look at how Mr. McDowell treated him before he knew, and then after, you can see it's scathing. The difference.
Complete 180.
Yep.
Thank you, AL.
And that was definitely
R.I.P. to John Amos while we're at it.
Yeah, and prior to that, how he thought it was the way John Amos behaved was a good archetype of the quintessential black, gynocratic dad. It was, that's an interesting example. I got to make some analysis of, but no, that's definitely.
Well, I think I have a little more nuanced perspective.
I'm sure you do. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, because I thought I kind of viewed him as using his older daughter not as sort of a queen unto herself, but rather as a lure of a high status male. I mean, if you think about it, it was the hair, the Jerry Curl hair.
Soul Glow crew.
Don't make me sing it. Don't make me sing it, please.
The Soul Glow crew.
He loved him because of, the status and the purpose of the older daughter was it wasn't that he necessarily was glorifying her as much as she provided the tool to the connection to this higher status other business family. So
no, you're right.
Yeah.
He actually.
So I don't really see that particular phenomenon in what you described.
Yeah. No, you're right. Because if you recall, he definitely he was using them as pawns, his daughters as pawns. Right.
And then notice when he found out Hakeem was a king, next thing you know, he was like trying to encourage his daughter to kiss his ass and whatever, He's like, oh shit. So he didn't really appear to care as much about the daughter as much as he cared about what the daughter was going to hopefully provide to him.
Mm-hmm. And think about it like this. And if you remember the engagement party, if you remember, like when he met, what's his name? Soul Glow's, I forgot what his name. He was the brother from ER. Remember when his parents were over at the house?
Yeah. Eric LaSalle.
Eric LaSalle. Remember when Eric LaSalle's parents were over at the McDowell house?
The Soul Glow crew.
And they messed up the couch. At least he didn't have to worry about that. Because remember, he hated that. But like when he welcomed Hakeem's parents, like he tried to, he put the queen on the easy chair, on the lazy boys, excuse me, and went out of his way to prove everything, and even use the currency to prove it.
To your point, Uru. Yeah, no, but McDowell is the model black men need to use on how you use your daughters.
That's how you're supposed to use your daughter.
That's how you use your daughter to acquire power. And because he was totally worried about pedigree and how valuable those men were to him and his legacy of expanding that McDowell empire. So, but check this clip out because it speaks to it real quick.
A woman is not really supposed to be choosing her spouse.
Yeah, the family is.
That's really an error in how we do shit in America. Really, the father and the men should be picking who the woman is with, because a woman is not qualified in most societies to pick a spouse. And a daughter is supposed to be sold off to increase the wealth of the father's family. A woman is a dowry.
A woman is a what?
Is a dowry. In older societies and civilizations, if
you have to tell us what a dowry is.
A dowry is a payment that the bride's family makes to the groom's family for giving them the opportunity to multiply their legacy. So a daughter, well, back in the day, if I was to marry your daughter, I would have to bring you cows, have to give you some land, and we bringing our resources together. So, you know, you're supposed to sell your daughters, not into servitude, but into a situation that can increase the wealth of both families.
Okay. What he described is how it traditionally, normally is and was supposed to go. But in today's society, you ask a woman, what's up with your dowry and what's up with your family's legacy? Oh, them are red flags to them. Oh, they finna start pitching a bitch. No, you supposed to pay us. No, you supposed to pay me. I'm taking her off your hands. She's gaining my last name. I have. Go ahead.
You know,
Go ahead.
That's what the McDowell example from Coming to America really, the way he, in a sense, I mean, obviously Craig was being funny in terms of selling them off, but he was, I think, it's supposed to be a pleasure for you to give your daughter to a man. I think black men need to adopt, in terms of your daughters, nothing wrong with valuing your daughter, but the McDowell archetype kind of shows you, it should be like you said, Namer, in terms of the scene when he was meeting the families. He was selling himself and selling his daughters to those families. That was
in fact, if they put it on the books, the McDowell archetype.
Absolutely, because
you and I we own the tag. We own that. We both have the trade. We own the trademark on that one.
Yeah, no, we got to give it.
I'm going to sue you if you steal it.
We got to give Uru his credit, his asterisk
credit.
That too.
He absolutely. And I have to first of all.
I'll go right after I'm finished. The point is that I think that posture, in terms of how black men need to, the posture black men need to take as fathers with girls, is that you need. That is not an unhealthy posture as you may think it is off the face, because in the gynocracy, obviously, to have to try to prove the value of your daughter to another black man is an insult. It's a pleasure for him to even just have the opportunity to smell your daughter. And I don't think I mean, obviously the marriage rates reflect that type of posture doesn't serve your daughter as much as maybe McDowell's posture, in terms of, no, my daughter be perfect for you. Sit down here. Look, check this out. Look at the cut she's cut from. Look, she's raised this way. And he brought I remember one scene, he brought them all out and had them lined up like, these are my daughters, and wop woo wop the bam. And he actually presented them and sold them to the man, instead of it felt the other way around, where you gotta convince a black father that you're good enough to take his daughter.
I have to give pushback about the dowry thing first of all, because let me hit that after you're done, right? Or in fact, roll me one for me if you can.
But go ahead. What's your
anyway
dowry?
The thing about the whole dowry thing, especially for somebody who comes from a traditional society, and even my own parents' marriage, it was an arranged marriage, and usually the dowry is paid from the groom's family to the mother to the bride's family.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they have to work out some kind of arrangement for that. But the thing is like when you arrange those marriages, it's usually between people of similar status or whatnot. Because if you marry somebody who's of a lesser status, sometimes because a woman will take the status of her husband. Prime example would be like was a former princess of Japan. When she married a commoner, she had to relinquish her title, and she became a regular citizen. But the dowry thing is very complex. In the case of like traditional societies, they would like require that you pay a certain amount of land or livestock or gold or something like that. It's usually from the groom's family to the bride's family. But in modern society, that has had a profound effect, because sometimes the fathers will overprice their daughters, and that results in is a conflict. That's why, like in certain parts of the world where cattle is seen as wealth, you have to worry about violence among certain tribes over involving cattle rustling, just in order to have enough to have cattle for the dowry. However, in other societies, like in India, for example, among the Hindus, the dowry is paid from the bride's family to the husband's family. And the reason they do so is to compensate the husband, because they understand when you take a wife, it is a responsibility or a burden, they say. And so they have to pay that dowry to the groom's family as a form of compensation. And oftentimes these families
and I think that's what that form of dowry is probably what he was speaking to.
Mm-hmm. And in India, and that brings its own problems, and that brings its own social problems. Like you see the whole the female infant self-deletion, the preference for sons.
But
Let me play
this.
The flow of the dowry is going to be a function of the perceived value of either party to the coupling. If you have an environment in which, for example, there are plenty of females and you have a choice male, then the respective wives' families are going to pay that dowry because they're trying to improve the market value of their daughter to that choice male.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's going to be a function of what sort of society, what sort of economy exists.
Exactly.
What sort of social system exists, particularly with available mates.
Yeah. And I was going to play this clip, but I think it's actually in a different language and like subtitles that y'all probably can't read, so I won't. But it was
that's okay, you can play it. I want to hear it.
Let me see if y'all can. I can get closer, so maybe y'all can keep up with what he's saying. So he's telling her right now, don't ever go out when your husband is not around. I think this is at his daughter's wedding. This is I'm not sure if it's Nigerian, but the African wedding. And I think this is actually the bride that he's speaking to at her wedding in front of the family, essentially. So he's doing this in front of everybody. And right now he's saying,
this is a Muslim wedding. That's the imam. This is a Muslim wedding. He's about to perform the ceremony. So he's the imam. That's what he's telling her, according to Islamic law.
Well, I think this is his father, because he goes on to refer to her as his daughter. Like, I'm your father and I did this. So maybe, I don't know. I'm not 100% familiar. So, but I do think this is his father. He's going to go on to actually say that. But right now he's saying, don't ever go out when your husband's not around. I did not agree. I warned you. He says, if you ask him anything and he says he doesn't have, don't ask him again. I warn you. So this is his father. This is a father talking to his daughter on her wedding day. He says, if he brings calf or chaff for you and said that's all he got, collected and bless him, then go and cook it. He says, don't let him report you to me, that he asked you to do something and you refuse. You know me and you know my heart. You obeyed me. That's why you are here today. I bless you and may Allah make you stay in your house fine. Everyone you see here comes because of you. I'm warning you. Don't let anyone destroy your home. Again, this is a father to his daughter. And notice this is all the women of the family. Everybody, I guess a lot of women of the family, all are listening to him, you know, monologue to his daughter on her wedding day. He says, if your husband said he will add another wife, help him. If he said he'll add another one again, help him. I'm telling you, if you listen to me, you will be fine. Whatever you need, I will do it for you if I'm alive. So you see, this father loves his daughter tremendously. He'll do whatever she'll need for him as long as he's alive. But it's gonna come with some demands. I'm telling you this, whatever you need, if it's not beyond my strength, I'll do it for you. But don't disobey your husband. If you do, by Allah, I will get angry with you. These people here are my elders, and I'm telling you all this in their presence. Yeah, that was the end of it. But as you can see, it's a certain posture there as a father that I think black men, black girl dads can learn something from. You can love your daughter. He sounds like he loves his daughter. Sounds like he would do a lot for her, as long as she was to obey his commands and obey her husband. Notice he has the interests of her husband in mind. It's not just totally, sweetheart, I want you to be great and you to be taken care of and you to be. It's of his interest that the interests of his daughter's husband are met. And I think that makes for a more productive union. It makes for a more enthusiastic son-in-law, that he understands that the father, he's checking his daughter before she even leaves the wedding. Don't fuck up, or you're gonna have some hell to pay.
I raised you better than this.
Yes.
I taught you what you needed to learn to understand men. Your mother raised you. In fact, I'm sure she and her mother had a similar conversation like this, but mostly in private. Well, among the women, away from the men. But you have to understand, a daughter is a reflection of the father who raised her. And when she marries her husband, she's going to be a reflection of her husband. But that doesn't mean that these families have like the inner dynamics. They also consider that this is a Muslim family. So there is the bride price to pay, right? But if it ends in divorce, the bride's family has to repay that dowry back to the husband's family, because the contract is now null and void. They need to be compensated. And the divorce proceedings are a little different. You know, you have to work it out amongst yourselves about, the splitting of property, child custody, everything.
So it makes it in the interest of the family to keep their product or their daughter
family reputation.
Yes, intact. So it's a well-oiled machine in certain ways. Leon, what's good, bro? Yeah, so I think to the conversation we was having. Yeah, I think a posture needs amongst men. If you have a daughter, cool, your daughter's a princess and you love her and you want the best for her. But also, I don't think it will hurt to, when she starts to date and mate, in terms of who she brings around, it's okay to let the man know that you have his interests in mind, that you've raised a quality woman, that of course as her father, you want to be a dutiful wife and an honest woman made out of her. But it has to be a fair exchange. It is not a pleasure for some random man to meet your daughter necessarily.
Yes.
You should sell it like that, but it's not something that you should just assume off the GP because she's a black woman. Because that's essentially how it's working now. And you're not doing your daughter any favors. Trust me, you're not.
It's a disservice.
Yeah.
I mean, one example, on the flip side, fathers who have sons, it's hard to raise their sons because they understand the dangers that they're involved with. I mean, Yeah, I gotta use movie, and yes, I have to use movie references and music references here. Like, remember Boys in the Hood, Furious, and Trey. Furious, after he found out when Ricky was killed, and like when Trey wanted to get back, wanted to retaliate. Remember when he confronted him with the gun? When Furious found Trey with his gun, he said, "Oh, you think you bad? Think you bad? Come on, use it on me. Use it on me." And he took the gun from him and he held him. And right there, you understand how fathers love their sons, what the struggle like ADOS men have regarding their sons, because they know how dangerous it is for them out there in the world. And sometimes they forget they got to prepare them for that type of danger was waiting for y'all. Like you said, I love you, and I know what happened to you, son, but I don't want to lose you to this bullshit.
As a black man, media, it's hard to encapsulate the experience of a black man in America in terms of the bloody catalog and the gallery of shit obstacles you got to navigate inside the community and outside it. I mean, it's almost innumerable.
I call it things with Afro Latinos, Afro Caribbean folks, you can say to a lesser extent, and other groups. There are parallels, but not identical. Excuse me.
No, it's unique. Go ahead, Leon. My bad. Go ahead. That's good, bro.
I call it, I like Carl Jung, and I call it like, I got two jobs. One's blue collar, one's at a hospital, and it's like I put on different masks when I go in different environments. So I project out maybe 25 at most % of who I really am at the hospital. But when I'm at my blue collar job, I can be about 70% of who I am. And it's like, when do I get to take off the mask in society? You know what I'm saying? So we're always within that avenue of, even when we go out to eat, when you think about it,
bro,
it's everywhere.
That's why sometimes when I think about the Pookie and Ray Ray argument, because what you're describing is the work it takes to really be a functional, productive black man in America.
Yes.
You got to have an ability. That's why I think black men are situated uniquely to exploit passport roles and have that social dexterity. Because to your point, as a functional black man that can maneuver within the system and actually get something out of it, it requires a level of social dexterity, a level of masks and personas you must learn to wear, and a level of social acuity that would exhaust the average person, average non-black man. And you have to do that on a daily basis, 24/7. So even when I think about the Pookie and Ray Ray dynamic, essentially a Pookie a lot of times obviously is making a lot of conscious decisions, but in a lot of cases is essentially a lot of black men, or a certain percentage of black men, because at least half of black men, or more than half of black men, are productive and functional. At least there is a certain amount that we call Pookie and Ray Ray that maybe can't wear those masks as easy as the rest of us can. And really, is that necessarily, I mean, that's not even, I don't think that's something we should have to do, but it's something we have to do to survive. And a lot of guys can't, because to your point, it is an exhausting, conscious, intellectual, process to actually flip those switches all day and be conscious of how letting out your full self, and be conscious of how people are insecure around you or threatened by you, and so on and so forth. But go ahead.
Yes. And with that, I get the general argument of like the Pookie and Ray Ray. I don't really intertwine myself in that conversation, because how I see it is different. And I've talked to BGS about it. My thing is, Pookie and Ray Rays are predominantly around blacker communities with a higher percentage, and they're born into that network. So their ability to code switch with not having access to stuff until it's like once you get into the work environment, but you've been living around a whole bunch of women your whole life predominantly, and then you have to function in an environment that's demanding something from you. And a Pookie and Ray Ray he's never had to truly code switch around others. He they've learned to dumb themselves down to make the black women feel superior around the area. You know, because they can get exiled, and it's okay. Where am I going to go from here? And so when they're in the work environment, even when I was a trainer, I dealt with younger workers that were Z's. I'm just like, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. And it's like you gotta physically do this. I don't care about your excuses. Like you're coming in this job making $20 as soon as you sign that paper, plus bonuses. This is what you need to do. And it's like they've been coddled, and at the same time, like we say, dumbed down because their parents weren't tough on them. And when it comes to spaces that they have to be somewhat talkative or, to integrate themselves, they lack those skills because they're so used to being subordinate, then to put on another mask that they haven't been educated on.
Yeah.
It's like going to a 5-star restaurant and you have your napkin and you don't know anything about none of that. And you look like the oddball out while eating out at this restaurant. You know what I'm saying? And the Pookie and Ray, their circumstances are the circumstances and they're limited.
Yeah.
And you just see it, So I don't trash them. And this idea of the quality of woman that they have access to is just not true.
Yeah.
It's not. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's totally, and that's basically my point, because you bringing up the work you have to do as a black man to function in a society that sometimes we're accustomed to a point that we don't think about most of the time. But it results in us dying earliest, having the earliest mortality rate. It results in us having a lot of stress because those masks and managing that type of shit psychologically takes a toll on you. And the miracle that a lot of black men do actually pull it off, even at the expense of shortening their life a lot of times, I would posit is amazing in itself. And I essentially don't expect every single black man to achieve that. They shouldn't even be expected to, because it really isn't healthy. It's just a function of being outgroup males.
Yes.
In this case, and how that's why it's very few communities of the diaspora that can relate directly to our experience, because we're an ethnic minority and we have been forever. So the toll it takes to operate in this environment, is tremendous and it's unique. And I think, again, black men, like you said, where do we go to actually be 100% of ourselves? That traditionally was the family, your community, but as time goes on, a lot of us don't even have those structures really anymore. You got your, you got your, essentially the place where you can be 100% yourself is by yourself.
Yeah.
And that's
when I was in Mississippi living with my grandfather, the ladies hated them going to the slaughterhouse, and that's where we used to go and hang out at and slaughter meat. And the ladies in the family just hated it because, the older cats would be smoking weed, shooting dice. It's like 5, 10 people on the clock, and everybody else is just there chilling. And the ladies hated the place so much. And it's the only thing that I would see my grandfather look at them, say nothing, and be at the slaughterhouse the next day. Other than that, everything seemed very flexible and negotiable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
and
that be at P, he could be himself there.
Yeah. And like I said, I used to run to his house to get away from all them.
And see, that's what we're, especially as millennials, like the younger guys, don't have those type of structures. Z's and shit don't have those type of structures to, fall. And you have to have a place. I think it was Baldwin said, as an American Negro, you basically had a perpetual state of war every day. And, really, you actually had a perpetual state of war within your house as a black man in terms of the gynocracy. If you even trying to do the family thing, you constantly power struggling and managing shit within that. So you essentially never get a respite where you can take the mask off, sit back, kick it, and be yourself and unbuckle your collar a little bit. And that takes a toll. And I think that's just getting kind of worse as time goes on. Like you said, that what your grandfather had, that's not really a thing no more. Especially like you said, in the North, in the cities, it's not really a thing for black men to have. I mean, the barbershop or some shit could be a semblance of that. But I mean, how often are you in there? And you know what I'm saying? So it's definitely important. I think, you know, this space stands as one of those type of places where you can be.
If I may ask a question, what about other spots like a local watering hole, or a sport, or a place where you play sports and everything?
Remember the fact that we essentially, the black community in America is dissolved. Much of the metropolitan areas that black people have migrated to since the Great Migration have essentially been gentrified and broken up and splintered. We don't really have a lot of. Chicago is unique in that, kind of because of the violence, we've been able to kind of keep pockets of black areas.
Well, let me tell you what I've seen and what I think has negative. I mean, a lot of the extra normal policing has been very destructive to black communities. You could be inebriated, for example, publicly, and not necessarily have your life destroyed by it. And so when you talk about your local watering hole, well, if I'm going to end up with a DUI or some other sort of mildly serious crime attributed with my pissing on the sidewalk or something like that, then you know you destroy a lot of that opportunity. But I'll also tell you, the technology, I think, has really broken up men, brothers. We black men, we used to do a lot of things together. We might be working on some plumbing issue together. We might be helping each other put up some drywall, or you know, with some roofing issue, patch up some a lot of things that we would do together. Work on some car, change some brake pads, you know, change an alternator. You know, maybe only one or two of us in the group actually knew what the hell we were doing, but you know, we could actually help. You know, put the battery in. You know, a lot of things that, you know, were more accessible to us in a tangible way, putting down some linoleum, you know, flooring, or some tile flooring. A lot of things that you know, brothers kind of bonded with, and women were not as interested in being involved with, as you alluded to with the slaughterhouse. These were the things that kind of helped to bond brothers together that aren't as accessible to us as they used to be.
Yeah,
I think how that was destroyed. I was watching the old school videos from the 70s, and they were talking about the civil rights, and between that, what took place was this, look at our athletes, look at our entertainers. But the one that really stuck out is the growing black middle class, and how that, I think the worst thing is for your educated and skilled class to separate from their families, or just move to another part of the city, to where a large population of males don't see them proactively working and doing things. So as that keeps on going on, when you look at the map of black guys compared to black women, we're literally separated. Like if you put dots and you see how separated we are, it's crazy.
Yeah.
From the South to the East Coast.
And it's structural. That's why having an understanding of structuralism is so important to these conversations, because you can kind of see how these things are linked. You can't have, once you stop, like you said, Leon, and like Black Uber was just speaking to, once you lose family, or you break family, you break any reason or logic to even have communities. Communities break down, then you have any reason to have any businesses or barbershops or pool halls built to take advantage of the resources of a community. Once those break down, you stop having places where you commune. And and the Black church breakdowns, that used to be a major place where we communed and actually work together and codify relationships. Once all those things are linked together, that you can't have one without the other. And a lot of times we look around and say, damn, we don't have the fucking place to commute. Well, you're not going to have that absent of a fundamental structure that would have to underpin it. And that's where essentially the gynocracy has put Black men in a lot of cases. This is why you can't just, this is why this space talks about the gynocracy. A lot of people critique and say, why are we talking about the gynocracy? Just ignore it and go on with your life. No, the gynocracy has a direct effect on you as a Black individual man.
It's in your face.
Well, I mean, it influences the fundamental foundation of your socialization, which will then influence how you're educated, your religious practices, your mate choice, obviously, your I mean everything, education, employment opportunities, business prospects. You know, when I was very young, and when there were a lot of much more many more Black-owned businesses, they were all mom and pop businesses.
I remember that.
Or mom and pop and grandchildren, businesses. You know, the vast majority. And even if they grew to a relatively large size or scale, they still were multi-generational family enterprises to a large extent. A lot of like all of the old hair care companies and all of those were like 2, 3 plus generation Black-owned businesses.
Yeah.
And so when mama and pop hate each other or can't get together or never got together to begin with, you don't have the infrastructure for Johnson and Johnson or Johnson Care Products or Soul Glow, as we were mythically referring to. That was a married couple, the Soul Glow family. That was a married couple that made that mythical company. So when you talk about the gynocracy, you're not just talking about pussy. You're talking about all aspects of the formulation of the Black community in the Black family.
That directly affect you. So you can be an individualist Sigma all you want, but your environment is shifting. Your access to, like you said, or like we spoke about, a place to commune with other like-minded men is affected by the gynocracy's erosion of certain structures. So that is directly correlated to your outcomes. That's what guys got to recognize. That's why it's a worthwhile topic or a worthwhile endeavor to try to understand it so we can dismantle it, because it must be dismantled. We as individuals will be affected. We already being affected by it. Like you're go ahead.
Prime example of something like that, we have to go back to like the 18th century in England regarding female interference in male spaces. For example, a lot of coffee, when coffee became like a prominent drink that was probably popular among men, the men would congregate in certain coffee houses, especially members of the British intelligentsia and people of high standing there, and philosophers and whatnot. There, these various coffee houses, men would frequent, and they would interact with one another and converse, and they would develop ideas and exchange viewpoints and whatnot. But unfortunately, the women had took issue. They took issue with it, and so much so that there was a petition sent to the king that, and then through Parliament, they were able to like outlaw these coffee houses and whatnot. Not understand, and this is a short-sightedness of women about that. Women, when they try to destroy male spaces, they don't understand that what they're doing is hamstringing the men and preventing the men from trying to advance the society further.
Well,
All they see.
I argue, Namer, that that's exactly what they know they're doing.
And they don't care because the benefit.
I think they know. I think, but it's a myopic view because what they don't see is that they're taking chunks out of the foundation of the society, the infrastructure from which they comfortably reside. So you think you are messing with your husband because, you know, he wants to hang out with his friends and whatever, and you don't like that. But what you don't realize is that maintaining of that camaraderie amongst those men will serve you by virtue of him being able to call upon those friends when they need, for example, to have their roof replaced and they don't have the resources, or this friend is particularly good, or his brother is particularly good at repairing vehicles or furnaces or something like that. So they think they have a myopic, they think they're addressing one problem, but they're indirectly creating a much bigger problem, especially over the long term.
And this is
what I just said right there. But thank you for elaborating, sir.
This is the era of romanticism, the creation, the 18th century. Good luck on that. But no, even it shows in education and everywhere that women naturally want to invade spaces of boys, and the governments fear young men coming together without an authority figure or even a woman to guide their direction of thought. You know, so I proactively, like, I see why they put people next to boys to alter their behavior and how they think. And you have a little intersectional agreeable boy, and then one of them agrees with him, the next one agrees with him, then your behavior is wrong. You know what I'm saying? So they invade those spaces on purpose. And the government loves that, because the last thing you want is actually a lot of young men, teenagers, to collect together without an overseer. And you know, when culture was more polygamous, where, you know, the ruling class was having the majority of the babies, how you overturn a society is with the single man leaving and not producing, offing themselves, or turning over the culture and destroying the ruling class, since they're a bigger group of single males.
That cost.
But that's a dilemma. I mean, if you neuter, you know, the mouse, you end up with the mouse utopia, where the men don't want to do shit at a certain point. So, I mean, you know, yeah, you've neutered your potential threats, but you've neutered them to a point in which they don't want to do shit. They barely want to even survive. They don't want to reproduce. They don't care about building or maintaining anything or defending anything. So it's a short-term apparent solution that creates a much bigger long-term problem. And we're seeing that manifest now, where over half of the black males in particular don't have any children at all. That's not sustainable.
That's crazy, because I don't think we even conceptualize. That literally means you see two black men walking down the street, random black men walking down the street. It's a 50% chance, or 56%
greater than,
that one of them don't have children.
Statistically, it's almost a safer bet to say that neither of them have children.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's fucking crazy when you really conceptualize it that way. Random pairs of black men. Every pair of black men you see. So it's so
here's a prime example of women invading male spaces, but at the same time they want to maintain their own spaces. Black group might remember this organization better than any of us. The American Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts.
Of course.
They started accepting girls into the Boys and Cub Scouts, but boys were banned from entering the Girl Scouts troops.
Well,
In Girl Scouts, you
let's
have
more accurately describe what happened there. They sued and forced the Boy Scouts to accept girls.
Mm-hmm.
That's
but you
what they
cannot
did.
allow the other way around. Also,
Yeah.
to also prefer to prove the point, like with the overseer such thing, or chaperone or supervisor, if you will. Girl Scout troops always have a den mother. There is no den father in those groups, but in the Boy Scouts, you can have either a male,
A male or
den father,
female.
or
Yeah,
a
you can
den
have
mother.
a male
Yeah,
or a female.
And I
Yeah.
but in
think,
the Girl
Troop
Scouts, it's
leader.
strictly female.
and I think,
That is feminism, gentlemen.
yeah, and I think people gotta remember, because like what these phenomena y'all outline and really just highlight where from women's point of view, and men can't forget this. From women's point of view, generally speaking, this shit is warfare. But as far as we're concerned, they understand the position they occupy as the weaker vessel in relation to us. We may not ever understand it because we're not women, but it is always a threat for us to commune without them overseeing it. It's always a threat for us to have a space that they can't be in, but at the same time maintaining their autonomy and their spaces. I mean, because this is warfare from their point of view. We acquiesce to a lot of shit operating off the premise that they're just thinking about fairness and equality.
It is warfare, and it's from the perspective of someone who feels that they are significantly weaker than you are. Now, imagine if we were in a warfare with Magneto and Jean Grey, for example.
We would do a bunch of
We
double
probably would not be fighting that shit fair.
Exactly. And that's what I think we got to accept.
If we were going against Cyclops and Wolverine, we probably would not be using the proper etiquette and chivalry.
Well,
In
worse than that.
those battles.
Mm-hmm.
It's worse than that, guys. When you really think about it, say if we have a king and we all agree that this guy's the best guy to be king, and the women like him, and we're upset, but the women align with him because they like their lifestyle or how things are structured. We can't move against them. They're just going to tell on us, right? And so when they go to him, it represents the fact that women really don't have soft power and hard power. So all they can do is attempt to mentally manipulate you into agreeing with them, so you just get away from the issue. And as you just allow it to happen, you turn it into a jelly bag that can be molded.
That's exactly what soft power is. They do have that because that is merely they use their influence, their information, the intelligence they gather. They use it in their own interests, and that's essentially that's the battle men are fighting that we don't it's the secret war that is not talked about out loud, and it explains why men take these weird positions like the Boy Scouts where they allow these things to happen, or like to Uru's point, you allow feminism to manifest in such a way, and we understand the history to it. It's more complicated than they were just thinking that the women wanted to be fair, but the rhetoric that's used to justify feminism and the men go for is an absence of understanding that this is soft power versus the perceived hard power that men have, the perpetual threat of violence men have.
This is the weird thing. I don't think they actually have the soft power because they have to go to someone else that's actually benefiting of splitting us apart, because other groups of males, even within your tribe, are a threat to your ability to be a leader.
Their powers it doesn't diminish.
It is soft because it's intangible. I can't physically do anything, but I can use the fact that I have a vagina to compel other people to take a stance against this person who don't have a vagina. That is a soft power.
And it's very
to Black Guru's credit on that one. I mean, someone once said it best. I remember. I'm not sure if I can mention this individual's name, CC. Let me type it in the back chat so you can find out if it's okay if I can use this name.
No, go ahead. I mean, don't let it derail you. Go ahead.
You know, I
See
wanted
the
to
back
go
chat?
back to the video that you showed of the Muslim father and his daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I thought what was most interesting about that video was that it was a public declaration of her responsibilities, not to that man, to that whole community of people.
Yeah.
So that makes not only her accountable to him, but that makes her accountable to the community. And it also makes the community, it gives them fiduciary responsibility over her behavior and her responsibility and her accountability to that marriage.
Yep. Yep. He even said it. He said, I'm doing this in front of
I'm doing this. Yes. That was the important that to me, because I'm sure he has had that discussion, those discussions with his daughter innumerable times over the years in preparation for her getting to that particular day. I doubt there's anything that he said there that he had not said to her ears were starting to bleed almost. But it being done publicly was the thing. Now you all remember that other video of, and I believe that they were African as well, where the woman professes her
dedication,
her obedience to her husband on the wedding day. You all remember seeing that video? That was a very important and powerful video. And the fact that she was making a promise to him and to everybody in that community, everybody who was listening, her family, his family, they family and friends, grandparents, everybody, that this is my responsibility. This is my role to this man, and by virtue of us being a unit, to this community.
Was it this one, Uru?
I believe that is it.
Let me
That's
see.
it.
Let's see.
I'll forever submit to you. I'll forever submit to you, Miles. I'll forever respect you, Miles. I'll forever honor you, Miles, as the head of our home and no other. There is no other, there is no one, no plans of hell will ever prosper in our marriage and will ever hold me not to be a wife that is a Proverbs 31 woman. I will become that woman that builds the home as I follow you, as you follow Christ. That is the only thing that we will do in our household. And I promise and I vow that in heaven they hear. On earth, I declare and decree, I shall be a submissive wife unto you as we continue to do this work of God. Because to us, you know, this is beyond just love. This is about God. This is about kingdom. This is about our duty, reflecting to the world what true marriage, what God really intends for marriage to be. I honor you, Miles.
Pause it. Check this out. She used 3 words, 3 key words, and then I'm gonna say something else that I have y'all really ponder. She used 3 key words. She said obey, she said submit, and she said duty. All 3 things that were in the Bible originally that they required of man and woman to achieve as far as becoming evenly yoked and being in a union. But did y'all notice how when she first got on her knees and she said she would submit,
Is that just me?
I thought it was just me.
We lost
you went out for a minute.
We lost
you.
I don't know.
Hello, you got me?
Yeah. Did you walk into
You
a
got
dead
me?
zone?
Okay, no, that was my headset. That was my headset. Please excuse that. But like I was saying, as soon as she said submit, it got eerily quiet. You didn't hear no women cheering and jeering. But after she said a few other words, you heard a few amens and this and that, and they were far and in between because the majority of the women who were there at that wedding, when she said what she said, trust me, they didn't like what they heard. Oh, they weren't going to be them type of women. She was.
Hold on, L. I'm not sure I agree with you Can you replay the beginning of that
Just listen. Yeah, watch and look how it goes.
Just replay the beginning of her.
Watch the response.
I will forever submit to you. I'll forever submit to you, Miles. I'll forever respect you, Miles. I'll forever honor you, Miles, as the head of our home and no other. There is no other. There is no one.
Why they eerily quiet while she's doing what she's doing? You gave her them cheers and jeers in the beginning. As she got serious with that, brother.
I don't interpret that what happened there the same way you interpret it. This is what I interpret.
Okay.
I interpreted that because they started applauding because they knew what she was gonna do. That's why they started applauding. They knew what she was gonna do. And they were silent to hear her do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like, you know, seeing a speech or seeing a graduation or whatever, and people cheer and then they're silent and then for a moment, and then they cheer as it progresses. But I didn't get the impression, it seemed to me, just even before she even began to speak, the cheering suggests to me that they were celebrating what she was about to do. That's how I interpret it.
Yeah, I would actually have to say that I would vouch with him because, you know, mostly in African societies like this, you got to keep your mouth quiet. Also, 3 key words she also said in there. If you heard her, AL, she said honor.
I said that. She said honor, submit, and duty. She used all 3 of those key words. Those were all biblical, like I said. Modern women and women of the West, guess what? If you go to any modern day wedding, you're not going to hear the word obey and submit in those vows. They're not going to be using them. Trust me.
Well, not only that, but we had one famously where the preacher tried to remind her to say she would obey, and she laughed it off, and that fool husband of hers was laughing with her.
Compassion, I know you got that contrast video. We say, man, play that one. Yeah, let us see that.
Don't forget sickness in hell.
We need to be reminded.
Yeah, but it was just to me, it was the energy, because obviously, I think I agree with Uru that I think the women, she was so comfortable and so enthusiastic. She understood that the women in that there would accept that type of behavior. Black women wouldn't. They wouldn't do that just off the mere purpose. They know that.
In general.
Look, when that woman got on her knees, it would have been women fighting.
Like they've been fighting to get up to the front. Girl, get up off your knees. What are you doing? Have you lost your mind? We don't bend the knee to them.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta put this link in the back chat. I saved it. I watched it like 6 times before, and it's Anna Marie Slaughter. And once you know how much power this white woman had, she even says it in her TED Talks. She repeats the word choice. Choice. We have more choice than men. Choice. She says it, at least, she says it like the N-word from Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
And how they frame women's existence is that they have the choice to be who they want to be when they want to be. So they're not going to stick to those like stern, direct words. They're going to always operate in very flexible words.
And see, and what's important about that, and you're right, Leon. What's important about that is American men need to stop accepting that as acceptable, because obviously the whole feminist experiment is about giving them that choice to be whatever the fuck they want, and then the society just acquiesce to it, i.e. men got to stop letting their wives refuse to use honor in their vows. Stop accepting women to posture like these people that just have infinite choice and have no sense of duty, no sense of commitment, and accepting that as just a liberated modern woman. No.
Yes.
I've seen
and one short thing.
Go ahead.
American society has produced that the wedding is a woman's center, the center of her experience.
Yes.
And you're just
Yes.
you're just a piece placed in there.
Yeah.
So
Placeholder.
even not allowing her to do that is like infringing on her Disney World dream that she's put in her head of her
Hey,
experience.
short story.
You know what I'm saying? And
I was at a wedding this summer in Jamaica with a good friend of mine, and he's a surgeon. And they was having a beautiful wedding. And you know the tradition that you don't see the bride and or the groom and bride don't see each other before the ceremony type shit. And
Yeah.
and they were having a photo shoot before the ceremony. I'm like, damn, but ain't y'all gonna see each other at the photo shoot? You can't. How you gonna have a photo shoot before the wedding? Ain't that violating that type of that ritual? And his fiance got upset. Like, well, we don't have to follow the rules of traditional rules. We can do this basically how we want. And I'm like,
a bad omen, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, and maybe you're not superstitious. Maybe you don't believe in, you don't have to believe, but the function of it is a ritual tied to how, at least Western weddings are how they go. And that's one of the rituals, but it was just an example of, and I kind of side-eyed my homie, because I'm like, bro, y'all just flippantly throwing away the rituals of a wedding. And this was one of the rituals they threw away a couple. But and it was trivial just because she wanted to have photos before the wedding, and it's like, bro, stop accepting this total flex. Let them have it. They'll just nothing will have any meaning. No rituals will be observed. It would all be about to each his own and what individual bitches want to do at individual moments, which is what we
consider this. In y'all's case, in the Western case, it is the bride, his family who pays for the wedding, right? It's the father of the bride who has to pay for the wedding and whatnot.
It don't happen no more either.
Yeah. And with that being said, nobody explains what these certain rituals are for. What is the purpose of these rituals? I remember in my own culture and other cultures, sometimes I ask, oh, so what is the purpose of that ritual? And most of them don't even know. They're like, it's just what we do. I said, do you know the meaning behind it? And this is the anthropologist in me and the sociologist in me wanted to ask these questions. That's why I had to go to like an older, wiser person to ask them, what is the meaning? What is the significance of all this? No one explains why these things are there. And like, oh, that makes sense now when someone explains it to me. But they look at you like you're supposed to know, when I'm like, no, this is why I'm asking.
No, and in Americans, all of that is gone in this society now. It's totally neoliberal. Every individual person can do however they individually want. To Leon's point, is completely day by day, more and more, the substance of things, rituals cease to exist. Like you said, men don't, that ritual that the bride's family pay for the wedding I've never heard of that. I've been to several weddings and it was always my homie paying for his own goddamn wedding. Like I said,
I'll give you another
Pay
example.
for mine. Pay for mine.
I'll give you another example.
I pay for my daughter's wedding.
Thank you for proving my point. But,
shout out to you.
And they weren't particularly expensive,
Well, it was on a budget.
They were respectful. They were respectful of it. But I'm trying to think. A friend of mine, I know, a neighbor of mine, I recall, he recently paid for his daughter's wedding, and her husband is you mentioned, it's interesting you say your friend's a surgeon, because I think her husband is a surgeon, so obviously he has the money, but but yeah, you're right. But look, in 75% or whatever out of wedlock child rearing. How many families are intact or whatever for the father to even be around to even pay for this?
See, that's another one of those structural things we were talking about earlier. You end up, one thing affects the other. So that, like you said, the lack of family structure that Black women insist on having doesn't beget a lot of Black fathers being in a position to be able to foot the bill for weddings. And then that just further reduces the chance of your daughter being married, because you're essentially you're treating your daughter like a princess, and you're expecting this man to be
in the gynocracy, the stepfather pays for the wedding, but the baby daddy walks the daughter down the aisle.
You ain't shit. You ain't shit, Black Guru. You ain't shit. I remember. You ain't shit. You ain't shit, old man. Because I remember that. I remember that. We seen.
I'm so fucking tired of this shit. Fuck this shit.
That's niggas in the gynocracy.
If I can interject here.
Yo, I got married at the courthouse.
Yeah. Well, lucky, smart move on your part, Leon. But I got to mention a couple of things. We're talking about violation of certain rituals and whatnot. Black Guru, do you remember the movie Legends? Black Guru?
Legends?
Okay,
Remind me.
Okay, it's a movie by Tom Hardy. He talks about the lives of Ronnie and Reggie Craig, who were these notorious gangsters in London.
I never saw that movie. I never saw that movie.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about, but I never
All right.
watched it.
Yeah. In that movie, Reggie Craig, the straight one that Tom Hardy plays, he's having his wedding with his wife to be Frances. And they're everybody's getting ready for the wedding and everything. They're wondering, where's the mother of the bride? Where's the mother of the bride? The mother of the bride shows up. And to everybody's shock, as a sign of protest, but also to go against protocol, she dressed in black, but not like she just dressed in black. She dressed like she was going to a funeral with the black veil and everything, like she got a funeral. And they're like, she's wearing black. And outside the church, the Hardy's character, Ronnie just cursed it. Reggie's cursing.
Yeah.
Of course, effing sake, mate. She's dressed in black.
Yeah.
She dressed like she had a fucking funeral. What the fuck is this? What the bloody hell is she doing?
Yeah. And that's why I say rituals, I've learned, aren't necessarily, there's a function to rituals. Rituals can join groups of people in a shared event or value system. A lot of times people, especially of my generation, don't see the value in rituals and think they're just, like you said, Namer, empty demonstrations that don't really have a meaning. But it's not a lot of woo-woo necessarily. The function isn't just a bunch of metaphysical woo-woo. It is a process that all individuals adhere to in a collective that symbolizes something. And that in itself is the utility of the ritual. It doesn't really matter what the exact ritual is, like not seeing your wife before you marry her or not wearing black to a wedding. Is more substance to it, that it is a collective. It's a collective of people choosing to entertain a certain practice that in itself ties the people together. It's universal throughout human culture that people invent these rituals and sacred things that they just practice that aren't necessarily logical, but they're important in terms of tying groups of people together. And in the Black ADO social constructs, we've lost the understanding of that over time. And
considering your history, what you guys have been through, and what the jump in the broom symbolized. And it's going back to the days of slavery. You see the similar things in Caribbean cultures because they dealt with slavery, chattel slavery. Same thing with Afro Latinos. You guys do not see the value of marriage like that. You valued marriage, but the thing was, it's like you knew you guys could be taken apart at any point. That was the thing that really destroyed like that ability to maintain those bonds, being forcibly taken away from each other. Secondly, a lot of people throughout the world, many traditional societies, they understand the significance of marriage because it's to connect everything that we've been talking about so far. Marriage is not about the two people in it. It's about families coming together. It's about joining alliances and whatnot. It's about clans coming together, nations coming. I mean, my parents' marriage, for example. And where I come from, it's a bilineal. I belong to my mother's line as much as my father's line, but my father's line is first and foremost because we're a patriarchy. But through my mother's line, traditionally, like I've said before, those relatives that I have on my mother's side, they're more than just family to me. That's my support network. In times of strife, those are the people I would go to, and they would have to come back to me, just like the people on my father's side. especially extensions through my aunts and everything. They have to, whenever they need help, I got to be there to help them out, and vice versa. In times of joy, we come together, we drink, we laugh, we break bread and everything. But in times of war, somebody got problems with my kinfolk, they got to call me. I said, all right, let me go get the gun, let me get the shield, the swords. I got to go call some relatives and say, hey, we got problems. They got, our kinfolk over there, they got problems over there. We got to help them out, shore up the defense just in case. Because those folks are going to bring in their families, their allies with them. There's more to it than that. They don't understand how big these significant bonds and unions are.
Yeah. And I think, I think there needs to be a study to understand the fracturing of these rituals within certain communities. And just it's a lot of archetypes and ideologies that seem to sprout up in certain major city environments, right?
Oh yeah.
Because what you're starting to see is, the same type of attitudes that have been in ADOS America for, at least several decades. You're starting to see people in other cultures, mimic some of these ideas, some of these neoliberal ideologies, starting to see, like, let's say,
pathology, the tangle of pathology, is it? Yeah.
Yes, there has been studies on
Gen
it. It's called.
Z. You're starting to see a lot of Gen Z, right? Well, yeah, I understand the tangle of pathology. From an American perspective, what I don't understand is how it's spread outside of America to traditional societies. That's where Kenneth Clark's analysis hasn't. I don't think it has reached that level yet. Because what I was going to say is you're starting to see a lot of Gen Z in certain cities in Africa that are taking on some of these same ideologies, right? So you're starting to see an increase in single mother households. You're starting to see a lot of younger Africans throw away religiosity and take on things like atheism and agnostic.
Are the societies you referring to going through? Are they industrializing?
Yeah. So that's a theory, right? I know that's a
they're
theory.
all industrialized. Look, if you accept the wayward nature, the rebellious nature of female, if you embrace the story of Eve itself, you understand what's going on, and you realize there is no, the basic nature of a mammalian human female is the same. It's just entirely influenced by the environment, what it is or is not.
You have an
allowed
echo,
to do.
compassionate.
Yeah.
Is what it is or is not allowed to do in its respective environment. That's it. Now, they may be on a different timeline because, like you say, different parts of the world are on different trajectories with respect to their development, both socially, legally, technologically. But I mean, left to their own devices, human females will behave very much in very similar manner, regardless of where they are on Earth.
I wanted to ask something. So there has been a study. It's called destroying the patriarchal leader in the family, and how splitting up communities advance the higher society while eliminating competition. So you just give the women something and leave the guys destitute, and you see how they operate because there's not a necessity for it. But when you talk about on the global stage, Anna Marie Slaughter was the global ambassador to a whole bunch of things. And when you include that she did work with Bill Gates, we know what part of Africa Bill Gates was going to give those women birth control that sterilized them. We know what communities they were going to, giving the girls education, while the boys didn't have it. we actively see them in Africa producing feminism. And like the easiest form to look up is TED Talks with high class Nigerian women.
Hey, yeah,
And
mute
as
yourself.
they talk about their their greatest of grandmas and when they used to roll over the land. And all these people came into contact with Anne-Marie Slaughter, Bill Gates, and the global agenda to stop the growth of the African population through utilizing feminism. Literally, like
I got a
anybody can type in
question.
TED Talks. Yeah, I understand, but I'm just looking at the areas that Bill Gates and those people were producing that
I
and
understand that.
creating those type of environments.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Oh, by the way, Leon, I love your kids, man, but they gotta calm down a little bit. I understand they're a little rowdy. God bless them. But
Yeah.
they cool. It's cool. But to Jesse's point, I gotta say, like, first of all, you gotta understand, Jesse. Also, in some of these African societies, as much as they're influenced by y'all, they've also been for like at least half a century or so, were influenced by Europe. Because remember, they were former European colonies, and those European countries still have a profound influence on them to this day. That's why a lot of the youth have aspirations to go in that direction than they do towards North America. And the negative effects and the social upheavals that have resulted from colonialism. Who's got an echo?
That's me. We're gonna start wrapping up in about 5 minutes too.
All right. But that colonialism has also had a profound effect. And not to mention, certain societies, the concept of divorce has always been there, but they had to deal with it differently. And single motherhood was often penalized. But oftentimes, most women who were end up single mothers were often the result of a divorce or being widowed, oftentimes at a young age. But I get your point. But atheism, a lot of that had to be because they were influenced by their intellectuals who had gone to Europe mostly, especially with the Pan-Africanists and whatnot. People sometimes forget about how profound the Europeans have on Africa. But go ahead, I'm done.
Yeah, that's what I meant because they worked with the Europeans as NATO. And part of it was injecting themselves into the Middle East and Africa. And she talks about it. Like I watched so many interviews from her and like how she injected herself into those societies for the women and producing like liberal concepts that Africa's experienced because they show where there were matrilineal families, where rulers were women, the Kingdom of Kush. There's a long history of female rulers in
Well,
Africa.
you get kind of in the weeds when you talk about that.
I know, yes,
Because
I know.
when you research the matrilineal thing, you do have African societies that are patriarchal but matrilineal, right?
Yeah.
Where the men are still the rulers, but a lot of times the succession goes through the mother's brother, right?
Yes.
So I just don't want to get people confused on that point.
Yeah.
As a lot of black feminists try to
However,
degrade and incorrectly represent those societies.
Yeah. Let me say this to your earlier point. My fault, Namer, but let me say this: that when Quigley kind of tragedy, the book Tragedy and Hope lays it out in terms of civilizations and how they evolve, and we can kind of expect that as societies industrialize. You know this, Jesse. You listen to BGS. This will be, into Uru's earlier point. This is obviously a function of human female nature to in surplus. They don't give a fuck about maintaining the society itself. They'll just they'll eat from the forbidden fruit, and that's just is what it is in terms of as societies industrialize and i.e. become more be able to provide themselves a surplus in terms of society and how it evolves. It tends to turn out exactly like you spoke to, how you see in the African societies as they industrialize. You start seeing a waywardness or a different model of family building and society building, which is essentially, like I said, and it's kind of laid out in his book that this is what you should expect. And like, again, so it's not really much of a mystery. It's just going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was actually gonna bring that up. You know, he calls it the pulsating movements of expansion in his book.
Yeah.
Which my thing is, I understand the general concept, but I don't recall. I mean, which I didn't. I'm not gonna front. I didn't read the entire book. I have it. I
Yeah.
probably read like half of it a couple years ago, but I don't remember the exact mechanisms being defined on how this is being taken place. But we have clues. We've seen the. I'm pretty sure everyone's seen the USAID line items being exposed
Yep.
on how they pushing certain stuff out there.
You know why,
As-
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
For the outcome they understand.
Yeah.
In the Black community, ADOS community here, you could stand to function as one of the earliest experiments in terms of how to destabilize a nation.
Right.
And they kind of
we're the
Canaries in the coal
A.
mine.
yeah, exactly. So they kind of deployed that
Guinea pig.
everywhere. They even did it in Afghanistan. So
Yeah.
once you see it in that, I mean, it's pretty much of a clear-cut strategy at that point.
What I also wanted to mention to Jesse regarding Africa is, like, you also got to know the history of those particular countries, because especially when it comes to the Cold War. Because remember, Cold War was a battlefront for both Western and Eastern ideology. So in some of these countries, many of them were influenced by socialist or communist ideologies. They had regimes that they were allies to the USSR. So USSR pushing communism and socialism emphasized egalitarianism, which people forget about. So it wasn't just feminism. You had also, egalitarianism from the socialist aspect as well as from the capitalist aspect. So depending on which countries, like for example, Burkina Faso, when they came under Thomas Sankara and his group, and they became Marxists and whatnot. So they understand the emphasis of egalitarianism and gender equality from that aspect. While Nigeria, they don't really have, even though they have always remained allies of the West, they didn't have that level of egalitarianism. Feminism did not have a place to come in until later on.
I mean, it's a when you bring up Nigeria, it's a complex thing, man, because when when I've been in Nigeria, and it's a very patriarchal culture. You see their women complaining online all the time about certain stuff that have to do with patriarchy. Like, why do the wives of Nigerian men get to have Nigerian citizenship, and the non-Nigerian husbands of Nigerian women don't get to have citizenship? So little stuff like that. But like I said, it's a complex thing, because it's like, okay, you have all of these aspects of patriarchy, but then you have just a lot of bad behavior. I mean, it's well known. It's well known, at least in West Africa. A lot of guys from other West African countries have a saying that you should leave Nigerian women to their men. So it's known, like it's really like ADOS 2.0 with a lot of those chicks out there. Not all, but in general, it's a lot of bad behavior. And so I don't know exactly where all of this comes from. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Have they always been like this throughout history? And ADOS women got it from them, or have they copied ADOS women through social media and all this other stuff? I don't know. I think it's definitely worth the further research and studies to kind of figure that stuff.
I think it helps to some degree accept. Like, think of how you would behave if you were not prohibited from, fucking everybody you wanted to fuck, or taking everything you wanted to take, for example. Think of how you would behave. Because to a large extent, women are able to behave in ways that men are not able to behave in. And so a lot of what we consider to be misbehavior and the confusing our confusion about it is our not being able to just sort of think about, well, how would I behave if there were some fundamental things I was not prohibited from or punished for doing? How would I behave? I probably would misbehave. I probably would drive very recklessly, for example, if there are no police or troopers or stoplights well, I probably wouldn't give a damn about stoplight, for example, if there's no police. And so I think we don't really see how many things that women are allowed to do that we're not either allowed or predisposed to doing. And because if you accepted and understood that's what's going on, you can more easily understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and when I say bad behavior or misbehavior, I mean I really mean a lot of things, right? Not just promiscuity, but also
No, we're not
things
just
like
talking about sex. I mean, for example,
disrespect of men.
you take away the pimp hand, or you prop up, for example, all this DV stuff. Guess what? You're gonna have a lot of women shooting their mouths off at men.
No, I'm talking about even in situations where that's available. You know what I'm saying? So like,
well, I mean, I guess it depends.
I'm using Nigeria.
I guess it
for an
depends
example.
on to what degree something is happening, but
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I mean, you can always have some women who are willing to do shit regardless, but they're gonna be on the on the fringes. The majority of women are not gonna run their mouths at men if ain't no police or whatever the state's coming in to save them. That's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean statistically, that's true. Because even when you look at, let's say, ADOS, ADOS, to my knowledge, is the only group of black men that have a 1-to-1 intimate partner homicide ratio, as presented, 8 years ago by Dr. Tia Sign Johnson. So most other groups of men, it's a lot more men that inflict physical violence on the women and homicides on their intimate partners. Which when you look at us, we get killed by pretty much an equal ratio. And you see a lot of black women killing black
why
men
that
in America.
disparity occurs? Because we love our women more than other men love their women. If we did not love our women more than we'd be killing these women all the time. We'd be choking these women out. Let me tell you, if you really think about don't nobody love a woman more than an ADOS FBA man loves a woman. Nobody. In the history of the planet.
Black Guru, but just look at let me just say this real quick.
We're gonna do closing statements because I got to get up out of here. So go ahead, Leon. Then
No, you go ahead. The person I go right after you, bro.
Okay. Now I'm just gonna say, and I'm gonna dip out. If you just look at all of these bottom shelf brads that's popping up for murder when they getting with these divestors, there's a couple divestor content creators, every couple months, and that just showing the type of restraint that we have compared to other groups of men.
They can't spend 5 minutes with the bitch. They killing them.
There you go. I'm gonna just leave on that note. Peace.
I'm gonna make a comparison. See, I was talking to one of my friends, and his family's part of the cartel, and what he said was, "And y'all murder rate is just stupid." And I say, "Man, come on, bro. Y'all murk more people than us." He's like, "Yeah, but they don't come up murdered." I say, "Yeah, they do." He's like, "No, because they're not found."
Right.
And he's right.
Right.
He's right.
And I just looked at him. I said, "Man, y'all do throw people in acid baths and put them in containers."
Well, here's the thing. Most of America is rural. Most of white America is rural. If I got land or whatever, I can kill and bury folks or put folks in wood chippers, all kinds of shit.
Yeah, that's how most murder
find them.
Now the other part is, I don't think it's because we love our women more. It's because we understand just that phone call causes complete destruction of your life. And then you're we're well aware of what we can be
No, but
subjected
I'm
to
saying
just by.
I don't think black men ever murked their women the way other men have, especially
Oh,
white
yeah,
men.
yeah.
You know,
Scott
so
Peterson,
I
anybody?
think I think black men would raise their hands up more at women if you didn't have the state. But I don't think we had a default "I'm gonna kill this bitch" type thing for disobeying. That's
Yeah, because
not
we're always
endemic,
regulated.
but to these white guys and these Indian guys and these Arab guys, that ain't a
Oh yeah.
problem for them. That ain't a
Oh
problem
yeah,
for
they
them at
murk.
all.
Yeah.
They murk, beat in public.
We never
They do it all.
publicly stone bitches.
No, you up my alley. You up my alley on that one.
But
But
go ahead with your closing statement.
Yes, but my closing statement is we operate like Joseph with Mary,
excuse me.
okay? We
Josie?
operate like Joseph with Mary, okay? We
Yeah.
silently move around. Okay, that's how we do
Yeah.
it. We don't throw the stone.
No, you take little baby Jesus to the woodshed every time he gets out of line. Take him to the woodshed. That's why he had to be a carpenter. He grew up to become a carpenter before he began his mission. Before my closing statement, I just want to say to Black Guru, after we go offline, I was hoping I could pick your brain about a couple things. There's a Marvin Gaye analogy I could run past you. But my closing statement anyway right now is, Cece, thank you for having me up. This was a great discussion. There's a lot to talk about. I hope next time we can also have a talk about the dynamics between fathers and sons, especially because there's a song that you might want to listen to by a guy called "Why You Want to Take Me From My Baby," where Aaron Hall talks about the battle of trying to be in his son's life. And with that being said, folks, as I always say, y'all ain't shit. Y'all ain't never been shit and never will be shit. And God bless y'all for it. Love y'all, man.
Yeah. Uru, you got anything?
Yeah, just as always. Well, not as always, because it's my first time, I guess, on your panel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you.
It was a great discussion. I appreciate talking with you and the other gentlemen. And I hope to be able to participate in future panels of yours. I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier about the importance of establishing sort of an in group.
Yeah.
I think that is going to be very critical in the months and years and maybe even decades or whatever to come.
Yes.
How do you establish this level, necessary level of fidelity amongst Black men so that whether they are here in this country or abroad or sort of globetrotting, so to speak, back and forth, that there is a default deference and preference for the good of our particular group, because historically there were certain things that happened environmentally that made establishing and maintaining an in-group necessary and viable, that I think are a little less available to us. And I think we have to sort of visualize and manifest some new criteria. So hopefully we can and should talk more about that sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And
Most
absolutely.
definitely.
And I'm glad you said that, because I actually have a presentation that I put together a while back on social dominance theory, authored by Jim Sedanius. I read his book and kind of tried to understand what his ideas about in-group and out-group dynamics, to kind of try to reverse engineer a way that we could conceptualize to kind of rebuild our own or fashion our own, the way you're speaking of. So I will have an episode, have a broadcast on that with a panel, and it's going to be really, we're going to dive into I kind of simplified his book down so we could kind of have a conversation about it. And that's exactly what we're going to try to do. Hopefully Nameless is around, because I've actually presented some of it to him, and we can kind of build on that and kind of try to understand the anatomy of an in-group and what it actually is and how it functions. Because like you said, it kind of naturally emerges typically, and it does naturally emerge, but to understand how it functions can maybe help us, you know, engineer or tweak what we need to in terms of our in-group. So yeah, and go from more of a forced classification to a consensual classification that we choose to be in Congress with one another and have a brotherly spirit. But definitely gonna have that conversation. Yeah, so I agree 100%. And yeah, but closing out, appreciate everybody popping up. 34 people watching, appreciate you all. Hopefully you can come back to the next one. And yeah, I guess I'm out. Appreciate you.
Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. I believe. Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. I believe. Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. I believe. Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are